Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all sorts of good things. And ladies and gentlemen, he is our very own insight man into the stars. He's the one, the only Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing today, sir?
Well, John, I hope I bring the kind of insight people love and want out of their YouTube pundits. That's all I can hope for.
Oh, yes, indeed. And listen, guys, we do have a number of things to talk about here today. Childish Gambino, Donald Glover, is doing a Mr. and Mrs. Smith television series. What? But yeah, that's coming to Amazon. We got Paranormal Activity is getting a reboot, a Justice League trailer drop giving us a really good look and listen to the new Joker. WandaVision is now the #1 worldwide television program in the world. That, and of course, your live questions, guys. And this is how today's show is going to break down. We're going to start off by taking these predetermined topics, and then we're going to roll into the second half of the show where we're going to take your live comments and questions. The way you get a live comment or question on the show is simply by using the tip link that's in the description of this video, or you can enter it in manually at streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your comment or question on the show if it's reasonable, of course. And of course, you'll be supporting this channel at the same time. And all of us here, thank you very, very much for that. All right. Hey, Rob, listen, before we get into the main topics here, I wanted, you and I, it's been now, I saw Thursday, midnight, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's been 3 or 4 days. You're going to hear some WandaVision episode 6 spoilers dropped here. So just be aware of that. It's been, 3 or 4 days. Rob, I just haven't had a chance to ask you, what did you think of WandaVision episode 6?
I loved it. I mean, when it was over, I'm like, wait a minute, that was like 5 minutes long.
Yeah,
but it wasn't. It was. This show is so bonkers. When you really think about the ramifications of what's actually happening, like, how did this all come to pass? And they keep plussing everything, and it just keeps getting more and more and more, and they give us answers, but at the same time they make things way more intriguing. Like the whole interaction, everything that Evan Peters said made me go, wait, what? Like he knows things about what's been going on there, and yet he doesn't seem to be. He pretends like he knows her, that yes, this is my sister, and yet. It just question upon question upon question, and I hang on every single word people say. I don't even know if it matters, but like all the frozen people and the one woman repeating the action and she's crying. I'm like, everything about it. I'm like, this show, I'm surprised it came. I'm surprised it came from Marvel, dude. I mean, it's so intriguing and just like, where's it gonna go? Like, how do you follow this up?
Yeah,
I don't know.
How's
it going to end?
I was having this discussion with somebody. Somebody mentioned to me on Twitter and says, I don't know why everybody's acting like WandaVision is like the next big water cooler TV series like Game of Thrones and Mandalorian. It's not. And I said to them, yeah, you're right. It's not. It's more. And by that, I don't mean that WandaVision is better than Game of Thrones or better than Mandalorian. That's not what I mean. But if you talk about a water cooler kind of show, a show that gets you mentally invested and gets you having to talk about it. Then I pointed this out because, Ann and I would do Game of Thrones post shows when Game of Thrones was on the air. And I said, the engagement, like when you talk about comments and likes and all that kind of stuff, the engagement numbers on our WandaVision post show discussions are over triple that what the Game of Thrones ones were. And if you want to come a little bit more modern, Ann and I also do a post show for Mandalorian. I said our engagement numbers on the WandaVision are over double what our engagement numbers were on Mandalorian. Again, that's not to say that WandaVision's better than that show. Not at all. I'm just saying there is an element of this show that is difficult to quantify that just makes you have to talk about it. You know what I mean?
I think that has to do with the fact that with Game of Thrones, you understand the plotting and what happened in the show is you get it. You like, even when there's a huge unexpected, like the red wedding, and something happens that you're like, oh my God, it still ultimately makes sense to our way of understanding television shows or stories. This WandaVision has no it has no discernible there's like 10 different things going on. Like in the real world, you got Haywood working for Sword. Is he evil? Is he good? What's his deal? You could do a whole show just about him. And then you get inside the Hex, and there's a million different questions. What's Catherine Hahn's involvement? Why are people frozen? Where did these kids come from? Are they real? Is somebody siphoning off Wanda's power? There's so many different layers to these mysteries. And any one of them could have fueled a show, but there's like 20 happening simultaneously, and you're trying to figure out, pick up clues and what's happening and what's going to happen. Like even Vision's plight. This whole show could have been about Vision, and you're like, is he alive? Is he dead? I mean, that alone could have sustained the show, but there's like 50 other things you're wondering about. And I think that's what makes it so engaging is there's just so many things happening at once that you want to know the answers to, and they don't answer them. They keep adding more wrinkles to all of it. And I love it. I mean, I love it. I just hope, John, it's broken into three episode chunks, just like a movie. Yeah, a movie has a first, second, third act, and now we've just ended the second act was the Hex getting bigger. Now we move into the end game. Now we're into act 3 when things should get really bonkers.
Yep.
And I'm like, what are they going to do now? I don't know.
All right. Well, hey, listen, guys, just all that stuff, so much to talk about, but you know what? Let's go on and get into our main topics here today, guys. And how do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with them. Whenever you come across a big story, topic, or issue that we think we should make a main topic here on the show, just go anytime 24/7 over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. It's totally free. Hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Ryan Osberry, who writes, "Hi, John and Robert. As a bit of a guilty pleasure movie series of mine is Paranormal Activity. Yeah, the sequels weren't as good as the original, but I always enjoyed watching them. I just read that they are going to reboot the series, and I was wanting to know what you guys think of that. It's being directed by the director of Underwater, which I thought was underrated. Thanks, and bring on the filthy." Okay, man, thanks a lot for sending that in. And yeah, Paranormal Activity is not necessarily a series of movies that everybody has watched, but it's definitely a series of movies that everybody knows about, Rob. Everybody knows about Paranormal Activity. And it looks like they're tooling it up again. This comes to us from the folks over at Variety who write, "Will Eubank, who directed Underwater, and Christopher Landon are teaming up to direct a new Paranormal Activity film for Paramount Players, set for release on March 4th, 2022. Eubank will helm the project, described as a new, unexpected retooling of the highly lucrative franchise. Landon returns to write his 5th paranormal movie and will executive produce. Blumhouse Productions founder and CEO Jason Blum and creator Oren Peli will produce the film with Steven Schneider as an executive producer." All right, that comes to us from the folks over at Variety. Paranormal Activity is kind of like it was the next thing to try to step up and become the heir apparent to, what was the one about the witch in the woods? What was that called again? The something witch? The Blair Witch Project. That's it. The Blair Witch Project. Paranormal Activity kind of stepped up to be the next Blair Witch Project. And to many, in many regards, it did do that. Like it was able to step up and do that and enjoy that success. They were made for very little amounts of money. And then they went on to make pretty decent amounts of money. If I'm not mistaken, Rob, I think the first Paranormal Activity was made for, I don't know, pocket lint. I think 1 million or less. And it made, I think, $190 million. Something along those lines. It's absolutely crazy. And so then they did more. And again, even though there was declining returns, the fact of the matter is these were movies that were made for extremely little and made profit and got a lot of people talking. I'll tell you what, I enjoy the first one. I thought the first one was fun. I thought it was pretty enjoyable. So at some point though, you can only go so far with it and you got to retool. But Rob, this is a question. You see phrases like reboot, redo, retool, a fresh look, blah, blah, blah. I mean, there's so many different phrases that it's like, what's the difference between a refresh and a reboot and a retool and a relook? And I'm not quite sure what they mean when they say retool. It sounds a little bit like they're going to start this from scratch. Not sure. Anyway, Rob, you hear about this Paranormal Activity thing. What are the first things that pop to your mind?
Money. I just looked it up on Box Office Mojo. According to Box Office Mojo, the budget of Paranormal Activity 1, which came out in 2007, was $15,000.
I knew it was under $1 million. I didn't know it was that low.
And it made domestically $107 million, almost $108 million, and internationally it made $85 million for a total worldwide gross of $193,355,800.
Yep.
On a $15,000 budget. Now they probably, to get it in a release, let's just say they put another $500,000 a post into it, all the things that they had to do to put it out. Still, this has to be one of the most profitable franchises of all time. And, you know, one of the things I loved about this, John, was it had me when they set up the video camera in their bedroom at night, you know, and they're in their bedroom in the middle of the night, their closet door opens. I mean, I think the reason that this franchise was so genius to begin with is it preyed on a fear that everyone has since childhood. There's really something either under my bed or in my closet. And I mean, that's one of the most primal fears you can have. And they figured out a genius way. Dude, it's one shot on video where the door opens, and it's one of the scariest things. I mean, it's
that shot where she's laying in bed and you see her leg lift up like somebody's grabbing her leg and just slowly drags her out of bed. I'm like, what the hell? I mean, it was really effectively done.
I mean, everybody has that fear. It was such a genius idea. It's one of those. It's one of those multi-million-dollar ideas that you think, man, I wish I'd done that. But and I can understand. Look, these movies, whether it's the Conjuring franchise or James Wan's Insidious, I mean, Paranormal Activity, all of it really is what kicked all this off. And we're not even tired of these ghost stories yet. If they're done well, they're irresistible.
Yep, and we'll see what they do now. Of course, I didn't think any of the rest of them were quite as good as the first one, but hey, this is something you want to go back, and it's right in Blumhouse's wheelhouse, right? Make something for an extremely small amount of money. Go ahead and make a really impressive amount of money. That's what they do. Question is, guys, what do you think about them going back and retooling, rebooting, revisiting, refreshing, whatever you want to call it, the Paranormal Activity franchise? It's probably a pretty good idea business-wise. Jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 2, shall we? And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Steve Payne, who writes, while a lot of us have been sitting around waiting for Atlanta Season 3, seriously, man, where the hell is it? Donald Glover is keeping busy. There are reports that Glover is going to be doing a Mr. and Mrs. Smith, series for Amazon. I'll be excited about it, but if I find out that this is why Atlanta keeps getting delayed, I'm going to be pissed. Anyway, do you think a Mr. and Mrs. Smith series with Glover is a good idea? I assume it'll be action, but I don't know if Glover can do that or not. What do you think? Okay, thanks a lot for sending that in, guys. And yeah, listen, this one, I'm not going to lie to you, this one kind of caught me by surprise. That Donald Glover and Fleabag star Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who is not only, an award-winning actress, she's been nominated for Emmys for her writing as well, and she's a screenwriter on the new James Bond No Time to Die film as well. And it looks like they're doing a Mr. and Mrs. Smith series, of course, picking up where Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt left off. This comes to us from Variety, who writes, Donald Glover and Phoebe Waller-Bridge will be putting a new spin on Mr. and Mrs. Smith for New Regency and Amazon Prime Video. That's where the show's going to air. The series, which is based on the 2005 hit New Regency film, is due out in 2022. Glover and Waller-Bridge will star in and executive produce the series, and apparently Phoebe will also be doing a bunch of the writing. I think, like I said before, this one caught me off guard. I have not, when I think of Donald Glover, I don't think of action. You know what I mean? I don't think of some high-octane action. Now, granted, he was just Lando Calrissian in Solo, and I thought he was really good in that, but most of his action was sitting in a pilot seat, going, woo, whoa, sitting in a pilot seat. I don't think of Donald Glover as an action star. But that's okay, because I'm sure he can do it. He's a tremendously gifted dude and tremendously gifted talent. As far as the Atlanta thing goes, I believe I heard that Atlanta season 3 is finally going to come out around mid-2021. So probably in about 4 months or so. That's what I'm hearing. And then again, it was supposed to come out in late 2020. Then it got bumped to January of 2021. I believe now it's supposed to be mid-2021 when it's going to come out. So hang on to your hats for Atlanta season 3. But I believe that is coming. But anyway, bottom line, I love Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I like good action and spy intrigue. I like these two performers, so sign me up for it. I'm okay with it. Rob, you hear about this Mr. and Mrs. Smith revisit. What do you think about it?
Well, just to put the two of those people together, something's going to be great that they make. So I'm like, I'm in. I think I liked Mr. and Mrs. Smith a lot for what it was. I really enjoyed that movie. I enjoyed the concept of it all. So, I think everything about this sounds delightful. And I'm in because, like you, I really like Donald Glover as an actor. He's really diverse in terms of he can do any kind of a role. Like not just Atlanta, but I really loved him in Ridley Scott's The Martian, as he played the kind of introverted mathematician who's got to figure out. Like, I always thought that they should make a whole TV show just about the NASA team and everything that they do, because they were all like these misfit characters. But I love the way he played that. I love the way he played Lando Calrissian. And Phoebe Waller-Bridge is great too. I love Fleabag. So bring it on.
Yeah, my wife was a big fan of that show too. So anyway, guys, question is, what do you think about this? There's a couple things here. A Mr. and Mrs. Smith TV show on Amazon starring Glover and Waller-Bridge. What do you think about it? Jump on down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 3. And our third main topic today comes to us from Raymond Reddington, star of one of my favorite shows. John, did you notice the Forbes story about WandaVision being the top viewed show worldwide and how its weekly episode release has contributed to its success? How do you think this will affect the MCU's, Lucasfilm, and of course Disney Plus's plan and the rest of the streaming services? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. I appreciate it. And yeah, WandaVision, which of course we've just finished talking about, is like the big water cooler show. According to reports now, it is the number one show worldwide. It is the number one show. But what is most interesting about this is not that it's the number one worldwide show, which is interesting in and of itself, but is that how it became the number one show. You know, Rob, when people would talk about WandaVision coming out and the fact that it was going to come out on a weekly basis, it once again brought up the debate about should they be dropping all the episodes at one time or should they be putting it out week to week? And my position on this has been pretty clear. The obvious best way to do it is putting out week to week. Studies have shown when you drop all the episodes at once, people talk about it and buzz about it for like a week, 10 days, and then nobody's talking about it anymore. Whereas when you put something out week to week like Mandalorian, buzz increases, hype builds, more and more people talk about it week after week after week after week, drawing more and more people to hop on board with it till it finally crescendos. That is what we're seeing with WandaVision. This is really interesting. This comes to us from Forbes, and Forbes writes the following. While initially, WandaVision had a somewhat lackluster viewing metrics, bouncing between the number 7 show and the number 35 spots worldwide, It eventually landed as the second or third most in-demand series since its third episode release on January 22nd. But on February 5th, when episode 5 was released featuring a shocking ending, the Jack Schaefer created series propelled the title of #1 series worldwide. It has remained there ever since, as of February 7th, the last day data was available. So, basically, what is the report saying? The report is saying that a lot of people watched WandaVision when it started. I mean, in traditional cable, Rob, like normally the premieres are they're the biggest viewership. Then it drops down to what your regular viewership is, and hopefully that's still pretty high. WandaVision launched. It was big, anywhere between number 35 worldwide and number 7. But what happened? People watched it, and it was like, this is unique. This is different. This is charming. So then they go on to episode 2, which was released at the same time. This is really different. This is not like the comic book fare we've ever seen. And the way they're hearkening back and making a love letter, this is kind of great. So more people heard that buzz. People talked about it. People told their friends, you got to come watch us. So what happened? Episode 3, boom, massive spike in the viewership. Number 4, another massive spike in the viewership. And then the buzz and the water cooler talk, and everybody keeps talking about it, drawing more and more people in till finally it hits episode 5 and takes over the #1 show spot in the world. The debate is over, ladies and gentlemen. The debate is over. Releasing, if your show is good, and that's the key part here, Rob, if your show is good, because if you have a mediocre to bad show, it ain't going to help. But if your show is good, there's no more debate. If you release on a week-to-week schedule, it will be far better for your show. There will be sustained discussion about it. More people who haven't watched the show will keep hearing about it. The hype continues to build. The engagement continues to build. And your show ends up being far more popular than it would have been if they had just dropped it all at once. Dropping it all at once can still have fantastic effect and still have fantastic results, no doubt. And I'm a binger, so I kind of like it when they drop it all at once. But the discussion's over. There's no more debate. There's no more discussion. What is best for the show, if it is good, is to release it week to week, Rob. It's just, that's the way it is. And so here we have now this WandaVision that went from number 35 to number 1 because of that continuous, sustained buzz, chat, talk, and week after week after week, it explodes again. So, I mean, it's pretty impressive when I look at, Rob, you look at these statistics and you see where WandaVision is sitting right now. Listen, I'll tell you right up, before WandaVision started, I thought a bunch of people would watch it, but it's a couple of second-tier Marvel characters. Is it really going to be like a #1 show worldwide? I never would have thought so. But, Rob, you're seeing these numbers. What do you think?
Well, to me, what I love about this is it shows that greatness is rewarded, that people have taste and that they will come to things if they are intrigued and engaged. And one of the things that I think that cannot be stressed enough about this show is it's beautifully made. And the people behind it have really thought, there's so many intriguing touches, and it's not just the recreation of the period sitcoms. It's the commercials, the acting. Elizabeth Olsen is just crushing this, and so is Bettany. I mean, the two of them together, who would have thought? I'm like, I'll tell you one thing, John. This has proved to me they need to make a WandaVision movie. I don't know what's going to happen at the end of this. I don't know if they'll be able to make a WandaVision movie, but Elizabeth Olsen needs to be front and center. She could lead the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, she might turn into a massive heel and do a big villain turn, but I mean, her acting chops have finally been brought to the fore. Same with Bettany. They're two of the best actors in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and now we get to see them shine. But I think this whole show presupposes that the viewers who are watching the show are smart. And it's intriguing. There's all these clues that people are watching. They're trying to figure it out. And I love watching smart, well-made genre television because it can be whether it's Battlestar Galactica, whether it's The Expanse, whether it's Germany's Dark. When you see a genre show that's so well thought out and so well produced, it's the best kind of television. And I think this is showing it has massive crossover appeal. I think people are discovering, people who never paid much attention to the Marvel Cinematic Universe are watching this, and I think it's going to get a lot more people to go back and watch the movies. It's the best kind of TV, and it does not surprise me in the least that it's developed these kind of numbers, because what more do you want from television? I just hope it sticks the landing.
I mean, that's always the hard part, right? That's always the hard part, because we talk a lot about even shows like Seinfeld, like kind of acknowledges maybe the greatest sitcom of all time. Its series finale was terrible. A lot of shows have a very hard time sticking the landing on their seasons, whatever. So let's hope they do here. Question is, guys, what do you think about? These are some pretty impressive numbers coming out for WandaVision on this level. What are your thoughts? Jump on down into the comment section and leave your thoughts there. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 4. And our fourth main topic today gets submitted to us by Colin Tipton, who writes, so the trailer for Zack Snyder's Justice League finally came out, and it looks like Justice League. I don't know about you, but it looks mostly the same with a few differences here and there. I like the nightmare stuff, but overall it seems like the same movie. What are your thoughts? All right. Thanks a lot for sending that in, man. Appreciate it. And well, I mean, look, let's be fair here for a second. We knew this thing is going to be 4 hours long, right? Zack Snyder has recently said there's going to be 2 hours of stuff that we've never seen before, which means there's going to be roughly 2 hours of stuff that we have seen before. So, of course, for the trailer to come out, if a trailer's going to come out, and by the way, Samuel Champion sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Samuel. Appreciate that, man. If a trailer is going to come out, then of course there's going to be, if almost half the movie, not quite half the movie, but if almost half the movie is stuff we've seen before, well, of course they're going to put that. It would be deceiving. It would be misleading if they didn't include that. If they made it look, if the trailer made it look, Rob, like everything in this movie was all stuff you've never seen, that would be misleading. So I really don't, and to be fair, there was a good amount of stuff in this trailer that I had never seen before. There was a number of shots. It's not just the Joker shot. There was a number of things in this trailer that we had never seen before. So, yeah, of course, there's some stuff we've seen. It would be deceptive and misleading if they didn't. But I think you're underestimating and underplaying how much new stuff was in there. I think there was a good, healthy amount of new stuff in there. So that's good. What do I think about this trailer? I liked it, but I didn't like it much more than that. I liked it. And maybe I didn't like it much more than just thought it was okay. And I like it. It's good. Maybe the reason I didn't is because I'm accustomed to Zack Snyder trailers being some of the best trailers of all time. Like when you look at the Man of Steel trailer, that trailer is probably the most artistically beautiful comic book movie trailer ever. I love the implications of the trailer. I like the nuance of the trailer so much. By the way, and Zack Snyder's the first trailer for Batman vs. Superman that debuted at Comic-Con. That is either the best comic book movie trailer of all time, or at worst, it's the second best comic book trailer of all time. Of course, the other one being Logan. There's a good argument that Logan may be the best comic book movie trailer of all time. But if it is Logan, then real close with it, maybe number 2, is Zack Snyder's Batman vs. Superman trailer. Not the second one, but the first one that debuted at Comic-Con. And when I compared this trailer to the other like magnificent Zack Snyder film trailers, I don't know. I just kind of felt like, okay, there's this guy standing there. All right, now the next shot, there's another guy. And the next shot, there's another guy. And honestly, it didn't really do much until the end. Rob, I'll tell you what. I have been very, very excited that they decided to bring Jared Leto into this. Because I am one of the few people on the planet Earth that actually really like Jared Leto's Joker. Not as much as Joaquin's, not as much as Heath's, obviously. I'm just saying I really like it. And so that last shot there with Jared Leto, I got very excited at that. So overall, I thought the trailer was okay. I didn't think it lived up to the regular standard of a Zack Snyder movie trailer, which are usually sky high. So it was all right, but I loved the ending to it. I thought the Jared Leto appearance, that one got me, and I'm glad they saved that bit for the last little piece. Although that's probably the only scene he's in the movie. But still, right. I got really excited seeing that. So anyway, Rob, you had a chance to watch this trailer. What did you think of it?
Well, I I did a stream about this yesterday, and I had a different take on it. Clearly, this is not an emotion-driven trailer the way that, say, the first Man of Steel trailer was. You know, that buildup of the wonderful music. John, to me, this trailer, and I said this, and I will keep saying this, to me, this trailer was metal, man. It was metal. I felt like I was in like I said, like it was Queensryche Operation Mindcrime, dude. And I felt like they missed out. I wanted to hear Tina Guo's Wonder Woman theme, you know, that just playing over the
I
whole
love
trailer.
that music so much.
I just was like, yeah, man, this shit's awesome. And that's kind of how I felt about the trailer. I watched it, and I'm I watched it once with the sound off, and I swear in my mind I just heard like AC/DC or Zeppelin or or Quiet Riot or Motorhead, or Slayer, even just some, and that's how I felt about the trailer. And I was like, it did not engage me the way the original Man of Steel trailer did, with that dun.
Oh yeah.
Dun, and that music, immediately you hear that music and you're like, it uplifts you. But this trailer, while I don't think the trailer it didn't connect with me emotionally. I loved Alfred's line about if you're gonna go grab the bull by the horns,
don't if you don't want the bull rushing at you, don't wave the red cape.
I love that line, but I still feel that they missed an opportunity. They should have just had, or they should have just hired like Buckethead to just shred over the entire trailer. So I really liked it from that perspective. I like the imagery of it all, and because it just like, in my mind, I want to buy brand new speakers that are twice as big as the speakers that I have. I want to, perhaps I should watch it in the garage where no one can hear how loud I want to play this. But it made me, that's how it made me feel, that I'm going to a rock and roll, that I'm going to the Monsters of Rock tour, and I'm going to see my 8 favorite metal bands that are going to play all day long. And in the case of this movie, it will be on all day long. So it's just like that.
All right, guys. Question is, what did you think about the trailer for the upcoming HBO version of Justice League? Jump on down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down and out of the way, let's now move on to your live comments and questions. And of course, the way you get a live comment or question on the show, once again, is to simply use the tip link that's down in the description of this video. Just go on down there and enter it in manually. By the way, special shout out to Michael Bochar, who sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you for that, Michael. Appreciate that, man. So just go on down into the description, click on it, or you can enter it in manually at streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your comment or question on the show if it's reasonable. And of course, you'll be supporting the show at the same time. All right, guys, let's get into it. First up here, we've got Useless Nobody, who writes, we're assuming that Toby and Andrew will be back in Spider-Man 3, but what if Holland is telling the truth and they are actually going to pop up in Doctor Strange 2? I mean, how great would it be to have Toby back under the direction of Sam Raimi? Rob, that's an interesting point. We have not, Sam Raimi, of course, is coming in and he's going to be doing the new Doctor Strange. And of course, he's the one who put Tobey Maguire there in there as Spider-Man. Listen, no, I don't think we're going to see Toby or Andrew. I still believe we're going to see Toby and Andrew in Spider-Man 3, but I've been reading some more things recently I'm starting to maybe think they won't show up at all, but I still think they will. But I don't think they're showing up in Doctor Strange 2, even though I think you're right. There's something very poetic about the idea of having Toby in there working alongside Sam Raimi, who directed him in his own Spider-Man movie. So interesting, but I don't think they're going to do that. Rob, what do you think about that?
I mean, I don't. You know what? After watching WandaVision, John, nothing is off the table as far as I'm concerned. And I think having Sam Raimi and Tobey Maguire reteam might be something that they clearly worked together 3 times. So, and those movies took a long time to make, each one of them. So they probably have a pretty great relationship. And maybe, but I just don't know. I don't know. I think like you, probably not. But then again, all of this talk about the multiverse, and it really depends. I think I'm going to know more in my own mind when WandaVision ends, because John, is the universe going to be torn asunder? Like, what's going to happen at the end of WandaVision? Like, and how is it going to lead into these other movies?
Here's
and
the
what's going on with
the interesting thing, though, is this. How badly could it be torn asunder if it's never even referenced in Spider-Man Far From Home, which happens 8 months later? That's the part I'm confused about. You know what I mean? By the way, Senior Film sends in a super chat badge in live chat. Thank you, Senior Film. So, I mean, I keep having to remind myself of that. Like, I come up with these theories and then I go, oh yeah, that's right. We've already had a movie that takes place after that, and it says this, and this. I keep forgetting about that, but I don't know. Rob, do you think like they changed reality in a way that is reflected maybe in Spider-Man Far From Home?
Yes, and I got one for you. What if Spider-Man 3 is a prequel to Far From Home?
I've heard that theory. Some people thought about that. Yeah, some people have mentioned that.
I mean, and whatever happens, and the multiverse of madness all takes place afterwards. By the time you get to Far From Home, you think things are back to normal, but J. Jonah Jameson's there. So it's like, you didn't catch it all. You didn't catch. I mean, at this point, I would not put it past Marvel that in the timeline, WandaVision, Spider-Man 3, and the Multiverse of Madness all take place before Far From Home, because they're calling it right now. They're calling it Spider-Man 3. You know, they're not calling it something else yet. So maybe they're just calling it Spider-Man 3 because the title of the movie would give something away.
All right, that's we'll see. Next up, we've got Ryan Lohner writes, I just finished the masterclass from good Canadian kid Margaret Atwood, one of the most celebrated in the world. My favorite part, if you're writing a historical story and want to really make believe, do research on what underwear was like at that time. You know, it's funny. I heard another piece of advice. I'm trying to remember if it was Tarantino or somebody did a piece of advice like that, Rob, when talking about writing. And they talk about if you're trying to write about something that's not in the present, imagine I think it was what Tarantino said, think about what an obscure detail of life at that time was like. And you'll find that everything just starts to connect from there. Like if you want to think, like whose time, if you want to write an old Western set in a different century, think about what was ordering dinner like, you know, when you go into place and actually order food. What was that like at that time? He says, start there and you'll find your ability to recreate the world. I think it's very interesting. Have you ever applied anything like that when you've done your writing, or how have you ever approached that?
Well, you know, it's funny that you say that, because like I've only written one screenplay that got produced, and I directed it, and it was all about our life at a certain point of time. And that's all we thought about. We thought about, like, what was it like when we went out to a bar or something? How did we spend our nights there? Like, what did we do? Like, when you first walk into a bar, where do you sit down? And how do you end up talking to people? And I think that's absolutely correct, because when you really start thinking about all these details that nobody ever thinks about, like think about when you go to a gas station, like when you pull up, like how do you like to pull up to the pump? And what side of the pump is the car, you know, what side your gas tank on? And when you start thinking about those details, there's all of these little things that pop into your mind about, do you go in? Do you like to go in and pay at where the attendant is, or do you like to pay at the pump? You know, all these different details. When you start getting into that, before you know it, you're inundated. If you're going to write say you're writing a book, you've got 3 or 4 pages that you just have described what it's like to walk into some place for the first time, because you're taking in all those details. So I totally think that's a great way to write. And it's funny, because now I'm thinking about, what would it be like? Like, they had to have had restaurants 500 years ago. You know, like you go to an inn, you know, we saw it, like they have the prancing pony and brie or whatever in Lord of the Rings, or when they
serve it in pints.
Yeah, it comes in pints. All of those things, and that's a funny, like we don't really think about what it was like to go out to eat 1,000 years ago. I mean, people must have done it. Would you like to go to the restaurant, honey? Sure, doll, let's go get Valentine's dinner at the pub or whatever.
Let's get some mutton. All right,
Yeah.
let's move on here. Next one up is Darth Revan, who writes, I love the Yo Magic commercial. I'm convinced it portrays Wanda's deal with the devil, though not necessarily Mephisto. That shark is 100% the background villain, though. Kid equals Wanda, so hungry, willing to do anything, clinging to her reality while she's drained. I mean, Rob, one of the things I said when that, like, I tweeted out after that commercial, I'm like, because every commercial in WandaVision so far has been a representation of the tragedies in her life, from the Stark to Stucker to Hydra to the cleaning up to Lagos, cleaning up the mess you didn't mean to make and all that kind of stuff. But then this one comes out of nowhere. And I looked at it and it's like, that shark coming out and just saying the words, when I get hungry, I feed on Yo Magic. I'm like, did they just tell us what this show is really ultimately all about? Is there some figure there feeding on, or is Wanda the shark?
Right.
Is Wanda the shark? I mean, and I don't know. You know, there was something really interesting, Rob, when she's talking to Pietro. Because earlier, in an earlier episode, it's almost like she denied she was doing all of it. But then when Pietro pushed her on it, said, no, really, come on. How are you doing this? Her answer becomes, I'm not sure how I'm doing it. But she's doing it, right? And her first thing was, so you don't think it's wrong that I'm doing this? You don't think it's wrong? There again, and that gets into Pietro about how I've never believed for a second he was actually Pietro from the Fox X-Men universe. But I mean, that commercial, Rob, that is the one thing. That's the one thing about this latest episode of WandaVision that I still think about at least every hour. At least once an hour that comes up to my head. I'm thinking, what does this symbolize? What does it ultimately mean? Rob, what was your first interpretation of that commercial? Because to me, it's just bonkers.
Well, yeah, first of all, I love it feels like claymation, you know, but I think it was a huge tip off. And the question that I had is that, okay, who's feeding off of whom? And look what happens to the person who's actually eating Yo Magic. It ended very badly for that person. I mean, that commercial, I'm like, can you imagine if you actually were the ad agency that made that commercial and you were showing it to your client and it has somebody eating your product and then they die and decompose on a desert island alone? And
well, they never got the product open, though. The kid never gets the thing open.
Right.
They try to open it and they're never able to do it. And thus they starve to death.
Then they starve to death. But I'm like, what does that say? You know? But I mean, maybe even the not opening was part of a clue too, that if you don't feed, then you die.
Yeah.
You know, and so I thought it was Wanda. I thought the kid, or maybe the kid was Vision, or the kid was Wanda, or something. You know, that it's like, here, the first one's free, kind of a thing. I mean, it was certainly
or the shark. Like, there's some people thinking the shark is whoever Pietro is. And right. To me, the implication was that the shark is like, when I'm hungry, I feed on Yo Magic. And actually, that kid is dying because the shark is feeding on them as they sit there and desperately try to get into their own thing of it. And because that kid basically dies in 2 days. They're dead. They wither away to bone and everything in 2 days, and they're dead. So I don't know. I could get wrapped up in this all day. So let's keep going here. By the way, Benson Gurin sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you for that, Benson. Appreciate that, man. All right, next up. Jeffrey just sends in a $10 tip. Thank you, Jeffrey, for supporting the show, man. Shakir Rahman writes, "Hey, Don. I'm having a really hard time. I'm trying really hard to like Star Wars. I'm 22 and never grew up with it. More of a Harry Potter fan. So far, I've only enjoyed Mandalorian a lot. Still wish I loved Star Wars like you guys. By the way, what's your house in Harry Potter? I'm not a Potterhead. I don't have a house, so I can't go there. But listen, you know what? Star Wars is this huge pop culture thing. So you go, well, then I want to try that. And you try it, and guess what? It's art. That means it may not be for you. It is for a lot of us, but just because it is for a lot of people, that doesn't mean it has to be for you. And if it doesn't click for you, and if it doesn't work for you, that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. That just means, hey, man, it's not for you. And there are other things that are. So, hey, man, you gave it a shot. You found Mandalorian, and that's great. But I wouldn't worry about it. If you tried it and it didn't work for you, it didn't work for you. Nothing wrong with that, man. All right, next up. Big Will writes, "Hey, John, what do you think is greatest football movie ever?" I think it's easily Any Given Sunday. It was like the cast of Avengers before the Avengers. Al Pacino's Inch's speech still gives me chills to this day. What are your thoughts? I'm not going to lie to you, Rob. When I think of Any Given Sunday, I have a hard time getting the image out of my head of Al Pacino in bed with a girl from Saved by the Bell. Like that's a hard image for me to get out of my head. It's like, but it's the little teeny girl from Saved by the Bell. So that's hard. Hey, listen, I like Any Given Sunday. I like that. Actually, I like that movie more than I should care to admit. I really think it's quite a clever movie, but I don't think it's the greatest football movie of all time. There is, of course, what's the Burt Reynolds prison one that got remade by Adam Sandler? Is that the one that Adam Sandler rebooted?
Remade.
I mean, that is great. Even though I'm having a hard time remembering the title of it. That one is great. Remember the Titans. I got to go to Remember the Titans.
Yeah.
I rewatched that again a few months ago thank you. And everybody in the live chat, Longest Yard. Thank you guys. Longest Yard. Thank you. Appreciate that. I Remember the Titans to me. I watched that and you forget how many people are in it. And I watched it again a few months ago. It's like, damn, this thing is so good. It's so good. So I'm going to have to go with that one. Rob, what about you? What's your favorite football movie?
Well, there's a football movie that not many people remember because it's old, but it's called North Dallas 40.
Oh, right.
That
yes.
was based on a novel, and it stars Mac Davis and Nick Nolte. And Nick Nolte plays like this battered football players on his last legs. And I really love that film. Look, I love Friday Night Lights and the movie. It led to one of my favorite TV shows in the world, but I do like the movie Friday Night Lights. There's just something about it that I really, really love. And
let's not forget The Replacements, Waterboy.
Yeah.
There was one with Dawn. What's Kurt Russell's wife's name again?
Goldie Hawn.
Goldie Hawn. Why did I say Dawn? There was a Goldie Hawn one, I thought, as well, where she played a kicker on a football team. Anyway, there was Rudy. A lot of people were Rudy, Waterboy, whatever. Lots of good ones in there, guys. We Are Marshall is another one. Lots of good ones. Guys, what's your favorite football movie? Jump into the comment section there. All right, next one up. Drunken One Kenobi writes, I like that name, writes, 1, theory time, John. Love the show. Thank you so much. It's all Kree. What other MCU character was led to believe on things that are not real? Captain Marvel and everything on Kree is made of hexagons, even where Captain Marvel stands to connect with the Supreme Intelligence. Here's the problem with the Kree theory. Anyway, let's go on to number 2. 2, they want to use Wanda's power to harvest the Mind Stone powers to fight Captain Marvel. The big cameo will be Jude Law and Vision. Jude Law? As a character from Captain Marvel as the big Luke Skywalker level cameo. I can't see that. The big cameo will be Jude Law, and Vision tech from his body will be to create the Sentinels. Okay, so here's the main problem with that, as I see it. Rob, it's likened unto another theory that somebody else sent in to me. Somebody else sent in the theory that, John, remember, the next series is Falcon and Winter Soldier. The person behind this is Baron Zemo. This is Baron Zemo again, enacting a master plan to devastate and destroy other heroes. Because now that he's turning the government against Wanda now, right? Blah, blah, blah. I said, here's the problem with that theory. In Civil War, the plan of Baron Zemo was one that took him years to plan and orchestrate and all that kind of stuff. The unsnapping had only happened days before this. There's just no time for Baron Zemo to become aware of all these people unsnapping and then formulate a plan that literally went into motion 9 days after the unsnapping, when Wanda broke in to take the remnants of Vision's body. I feel the same way about Kree. I mean, Kree would have to, it would take a plan. They would have to put something in place and something in motion. And I just don't think like 10 days, 15 days, or 9 days is enough time for that to be a real plan. So I don't know, Rob, what do you think about the theory of the Kree being behind all this?
Well, the real question is, like, why would they want to do this? I mean, if you're like an alien species and you want to do some, I mean, it's not like this is done in secret. This is a huge, like whoever's doing this, and this is one of the things that I need to know about this show. Whatever's going on here, it's pretty ostentatious. I mean, it's not like they're doing this in secret. It's not like, well, if we want to harvest Wanda Maximoff's powers, why didn't they take her away to a secure location? I mean, they're doing this way out in public, and it's I don't think the Kree would do that, unless they're going to show up with an armada to invade. I mean, what would be the end game here for them? That's one of the things I most want to know. Like, whoever's doing this, you'd think they might want to have done it and not drawn so much attention to themselves. But who knows?
Yeah, that's true. All right, next up. Let's see. Jeff Prince writes, hello, John and Ann. Ann's not here right now, I see. Longtime watcher, first-time writer. I agree with your theory that Haywood is not the real bad guy. I feel he is the MCU version of William Stryker / Boulevard Trask. Thoughts, and thank you for the entertainment you give. So there's an interesting idea here. Like, a lot of people have been saying and thinking that Hayward, the director of S.W.O.R.D., is the big bad guy. My main reason why I don't buy into that, and I'm not saying it's possible. He's clearly a dick, Rob. He's clearly a dick. But the reason I don't necessarily buy into it is that Kevin Feige and Marvel are way better at hiding things. This would be the worst job they've ever done. Who's the big bad guy? The guy who's been acting like a total dick from the very beginning. It's just too obvious. And by the way, Rob, here's my theory. The other thing I've said about Hayward is this. Every time there's a confrontation between Hayward and Rambo, here's the thing, go back and watch. Everything Hayward says is true. When they're having that big conference, he says she was radicalized by Hydra, true. Her first exposure was when she was fighting against the Avengers, true. Was the cause of the thing that went on in Lagos, true. Has been stole the body of Vision, true. Has holding thousands of people hostage, true. I mean, he's being a big dick about it, but in reality, everything he says is accurate, and it's not unreasonable that a guy in his position, looking at this person with powers of the gods, holding a town hostage with the history that Wanda has, that he may come to the conclusion of, she's a problem that's got to be dealt with. And he's being a total dick about it. But I think, Rob, who are the only people that escape the expanding of the Hex? Jimmy, Monica, and Hayward. I believe the three of them are now that they had their big confrontation with each other, now I believe the three of them are going to work together. I don't know that. I'm just guessing. But where are you at right now on whether or not Hayward is actually like a big baddie in all this? Like really a villainous figure?
That's the thing. I mean, I haven't liked how at first it seemed like he had a good relationship with Monica. And he sent Monica there. And I understand you're taking over because it's now your jurisdiction. But like you said, I mean, he's the leader of S.W.O.R.D. They're supposed to deal with extraterrestrial threats. Well, this isn't exactly your run-of-the-mill terrestrial threat, so it falls under their wheelhouse. And like he's in battle mode, that guy, and he's like, what are we doing here? And this situation is dire. So I think he's acting like a commander would act. But because he's a dick, everyone's like, well, he's got to be a big bad. I don't necessarily think so. I think that he's not being very nice to anyone. And he's trying to get rid of, like, if Monica's sympathetic to Wanda, and he's like, get out of here. I don't need to hear this right now. We have a problem to solve. And the problem is not, I don't care about her feelings. I care about this town and all these townspeople that are being victimized right now. But I think you're right. I think they probably will wind up working together because we're just so used to having our government agencies be controlled by Hydra when we see them in the MCU that we're just assuming that he's going to be a bad guy. But maybe, like you said, he's not. He's telling it like it is, and he's going to turn out to be capable and solve this problem. But I think you might be right. They probably will work together along with whoever the astrophysicist turns out to be.
Not astrophysicist, aerospace engineer.
Pardon me, aerospace engineer,
Aerospace engineer, which is why I don't think some people are theorizing that the doctor they're going to go see is Dr. Selvig, Stellan Skarsgård. But that's the problem. Stellan Skarsgård, Dr. Selvig, is an astrophysicist, which is a very different thing than a aerospace engineer. So I'm Reed Richards, maybe, I don't know. We'll see. By the way, Big Mike's sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you so much for that, man. I appreciate that. All right, let's keep going on here. Next up, War Doctor writes, "Hey, John, which saga is better, Star Wars or Lord of the Rings? As much as I love Star Wars, I'd have to say, in my opinion, Lord of the Rings is the better saga overall. Thanks, and what are your thoughts?" Star Wars. I think Star Wars is the better saga. Now, I say that as an absolute die-hard fan of both the books, Lord of the Rings, and their incarnation in the movies, the Peter Jackson. I've said before, Rob, I think that Lord of the Rings Return of the King is the single greatest achievement in the art of cinema making of all time when you take into consideration all the various aspects and disciplines that go into making a movie. But yeah, I'm gonna say Star Wars on that. But hey, saying Lord of the Rings is clear. It's never a wrong time to say Lord of the Rings either, man. So thanks for that. All right, next up. Matt Finch writes, "Hey, John, love the show. Thank you so much." Oh, and Matt tips in $50. Thank you, Matt, for supporting the channel on that level, man. That's very generous of you. Thank you, dude. He writes in, "Hey, John, love the show. Thank you so much. And all the great insight you provide. What an amazing intro to WandaVision. I still think Agnes is Agatha Harkness in Mephisto is pulling the strings. Regardless, with The Mandalorian, Cobra Kai, and now WandaVision, my mind continues to be blown away." And it's true. Listen, we live in such a great time. And by the way, Christopher Richard sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you for that, Christopher. Appreciate it. I'm not a Cobra Kai guy. I wish I was. I was very excited for the show when it was coming up, but then I watched about 3 or 4 episodes. Wasn't for me. My wife is obsessed with it, though, and loves that show. And a lot of people are loving it. Then you got Mandalorian, which was unbelievable. And now we got WandaVision, which is unbelievable. And Rob, you often use the term an embarrassment of riches.
Yes.
Yeah, an embarrassment of riches. And even though, like, we're not getting enough great, fantastic content, but we are getting, the fan community is getting some really incredibly great content. I mean, the Cobra Kai thing may not be for me, but a lot of people super love it and are excited about it. Mandalorian just got kicked off in a big way. WandaVision, a lot of people very excited about the Justice League thing. It's a good time, Rob. Like, when you look at this stuff right now, like, what goes through your head?
Well, I mean, like, we are living in a time where the quality of this entertainment has reached such a high bar because people know now that the audiences are there for this material. You know, that no longer, I used to think maybe that television was lesser than movies, for instance. Well, that isn't the case. We've watched over the last 20 years how television has become, and now streaming has been delivering top-notch quality entertainment. I mean, it just over the last year, everything from Better Call Saul to The Queen's Gambit to, say, WandaVision, The Expanse, The Boys, all of this kinds of entertainment. It's just as good as any movie you'd ever see. And I think a lot of that is because they know that audiences are there for it. Audiences demand this kind of entertainment. And they will watch it, and they will be with. Like, WandaVision requires an audience to have an attention span. You need to pay attention to this show,
but not too much of an attention span because it's only 30 minutes long. But yes, well, yeah, it does. But overall, it does.
You know, isn't it funny? Like 5 weeks ago, people were like, "Well, I just thought the first 2 episodes of WandaVision were like boring. I didn't know where they were going, and I didn't like any of it." And now it's like, 4 weeks later or 3 weeks later, we can't get to the TV fast enough. I can't remember the last time at midnight Pacific time when that, I'm on Disney Plus, man. I want it right as soon as the thing clicks over. New episode of WandaVision available. I'm like, click. I'm that into it. I'm like, I don't want to wait. Show it to me now. I'm that engaged. And it's amazing that we live in a world where television, I can wait. I mean, I can't wait to see a TV show. And there's a lot. I was that way with The Expanse. I was that way with The Boys. The Queen's Gambit, I binged all at once. I couldn't get enough of that. And it's great. It's great that we live in times. I mean, for all the complaining that we as fans do, we also have to remember we are getting some great, great, great material.
We absolutely are. And again, I go back to that phrase you often use, which is so good, the embarrassment of riches that we have. So again, Matt, thank you so much for tipping in on that amount and supporting our channel that much. And thanks for sharing your views on that, man. I really appreciate it, Matt. All right, let's move on here. Caleb writes, new Joss Whedon stuff is especially sad because it means Ray Fisher and Justice League were not isolated due to the pressure of the set taking over from Snyder. It shows a pattern. I bet Warner Brothers and HBO knew about this, which is why he got fired off the Nevers. Do you agree? And by the way, Brandon Lewis sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Brandon. Yeah, I addressed this the other day, and I'll address it again. The Joss Whedon stuff, for me as a fan, is especially disappointing and especially sad to hear, because I am not just a Joss Whedon fan. I am a huge Joss Whedon fan. I'm not just a casual Joss Whedon fan. I am a massive Joss Whedon fan. I think he directed the greatest comic book movie of all time in The Avengers. Firefly is one of the most celebrated amongst geek cultures, one of the greatest sci-fi shows of all time. I thought Serenity was absolutely brilliant. I mean, the following and everything amassed from just things like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel and things like that and on. I think he's absolutely incredible. I've met Joss on a number of occasions. I've had a chance to hang out with him and things like that. I am a big fan. I don't want to undersell that. I'm not just a guy who casually likes him. I'm a huge fan of Joss Whedon. And, when all the Ray, and I still don't think we know everything that's going on, when the Ray Fisher stuff was going on, and I still don't like a lot of the way Ray has attacked Warner Brothers and attacked Walter Hamada and all that kind of stuff. But that being said, when the stuff was going on with Ray Fisher, one of the things that I would always say every time we would talk about it is, but look, none of us were there. If Ray Fisher is making all this shit up, fuck Ray Fisher. If Joss Whedon really did do a lot of these things that, we don't know, nobody's saying anything specific, but if he did do a lot of really rotten things, then fuck Joss Whedon. But I wasn't there, so we can't say. Maybe when we get more information, we'll change our things. But then fast forward a bit. Then the Charisma Carpenter thing happens. She comes out. And it's like, okay, well, maybe that could just be sour grapes. But then I always mispronounce Trachtenberg's. I'm assuming that's how you pronounce her last name, Trachtenberg. Then Trachtenberg came out and said some very disturbing things. But the real thing was this. It's when Sarah Michelle Gellar, who never says anything. Like, Sarah Michelle Gellar stays very private and very quiet. And on the heels of all that, when Sarah Michelle Gellar comes out and makes the statement, I will always be proud to be associated with Buffy Summers, but I never want my name to be associated with Joss Whedon. When you start having and now a screenwriter from one of Whedon's shows is also coming out.
Marty Noxon.
Is also coming out and saying things. Now look, at the end of the day, what I said before still stands. I wasn't there. I don't know anything. I'm still not hearing a lot of specifics. But as a fan, as somebody who's been a massive fan of Joss Whedon, it is very, very, I'm just going to use the term disappointing to hear a lot of this stuff. Now, and again, I say that without judgment or condemnation because I was not there. I do not know all the facts. I do not believe in the court of public opinion. But it's disturbing and it's disappointing. And as somebody who has been such an ardent defender and supporter and fan of Joss Whedon, it's a subject of disillusionment as well a little bit. So again, I wasn't there. I don't know for sure. That hasn't changed. That's the same thing before, but it paints it in a very bad light. And again, all I can say is it's heartbreaking. As it's a bigger heartbreak to me, Rob, because, you and I talked about how big of a fan I was of Bill Cosby. And that was heartbreaking. When all the stuff about Bill Cosby came out, that was heartbreaking to me. this is not the same level as what Bill Cosby was doing, obviously, but still, my heartbreak is even bigger because I was an even bigger fan of Joss Whedon than I was of Bill Cosby. So I don't know. I'm going to wait to see how things shake out and everything, but I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you it was very, very disappointing as somebody who was as an ardent and strong and big fan of Whedon's, and still am a big fan of his work. His work is incredible, but I mean, hey, look, we always have to be, as human beings, in a place where we will change our thoughts on things as new evidence and new information becomes available to us. That's all we can ever do as human beings. We base our thoughts and opinions on things on the criteria of what information is available to us right now. And then be open that more information may come later. And if more information comes, you have to be non-rigid in the positions you take. And if more information comes out, you got to be willing to kind of re-examine what position you've had. That's what intelligent people do. And yeah, it's disappointing to me. Now, I'm spending more time on this than I should, but it's such a personal thing to me. But yeah, that it is what it is. All right, let's keep moving on here. Next up comes us from Civilized Blackbird, who writes, did you notice Pietro calling the twins Devil Spawn? Also made the aerospace engineer is Victor Von Doom. Finally, when Vision interacted with Agnes, she was the only person to respond back before getting zapped in the head. Hayward mentioned Nightmare twice. Here's the thing, though, Rob. I think a lot of us, I said this before, I think a lot of people, and a lot of us, including me, probably including you and including everybody else, we are, especially genre fans, and I have been guilty of this. Totally me too. All of us. We look for anything to be a connecting reference. Anything. Like I made a joke the other day, but it's like, there could be a restaurant scene and somebody would say, did you notice that there were 2 bottles of red ketchup on the table? Iron Man wears red armor, ergo Iron Man is going to show up in this movie later. I mean, that's what we do. And we've all done it. That's what we as genre fans do. But I've noticed that like, for instance, how many TV shows and movies have we seen characters refer to the kids running around as little devils or little hellspawn? It's happened a lot, but it happens here, Mephisto, and it might be. But again, it's that thing to us that we as film fans, we will look for any little thing and then try to develop an entire world ethos on that one detail we found. We go, this means this. And we all do it. It's part of the fun. I don't know. Do you do that? Do you see that happening a lot in WandaVision?
Well, it seems to be like, the whole idea of the kick-ass line that was in the last episode.
That was so good. That was so good.
And, you look at it and you're like, on one hand, maybe like I think to myself, it could just be somebody saying kick-ass. It's kick-ass, man. But then you're like, come on. Of course they put it in there to make it. You would have had to have done that, right? Because you have both Quicksilvers in the same movie. I mean, come on. You can't
by the way, it wasn't like a casual, it was referenced casually, and then they purposefully changed camera shot, pause, kick ass. I mean, it was so obvious that they did that one.
Yeah.
It was glorious. It was great.
I mean, yes. Yes, indeed.
So that is something that we do, Civilized. But I mean, hey, who knows? I tons of these things, I believe, are purposeful little misdirects by Kevin Feige and crew. Purposeful misdirects. But if I say most of them all are, that means some of them aren't. So I don't know which ones are legit. We'll find out. All right, next up. All right, Downey Jr. writes, I just noticed that at the end of every episode, it appears as if someone is turning off their TVs, just like Darcy did at the end of episode 1. Could someone in another universe be watching this whole thing as a show on their own, of their own? Well, listen, when Jack Schaefer, the creator of WandaVision, was talking about the CMBRs or the CMBRs, right? Yeah, the residual radiation stuff. When she was explaining why she decided to use that in the show, she did specifically say these signals literally travel through space and they just keep going. So listen, personally, I feel the ending of WandaVision episodes when it goes, please stand by, I think that's just an artistic thing, for us as the audience.
Yeah,
but
it's great.
But it's great. And listen, maybe there's a reason Schaefer specifically mentioned these things. She said these things just keep going out into space and they just keep going and going and going. Maybe we find out at the end some alien being. Maybe Galactus is sitting around in his lounger. He's got his feet up. He's wearing his gitch. And he's watching this TV show and goes, that world looks delicious at the end. I mean, I don't know that that's the post-credit scene, but maybe, Rob, what do you think the idea at the end we're going to find out some alien somewhere is watching this whole thing?
I think it's Howard the Duck.
I wouldn't doubt it. That's
Howard the
theory.
Duck and Benicio del Toro are watching this. What is this? What are we watching?
I gotta go visit there. I think that's a great theory. All right, Teddy D. Yes, Teddy D writes, tips in a $25 tip. Thank you, Teddy, for supporting the channel on that level, man. Really appreciate that, dude. Teddy writes, John, love your work. Been a follower for years. Thank you so much, Teddy. Appreciate that. Happy for your success, but the new house transition must not be as smooth as you're letting on. Please get your, I don't know, that hoodie, dry clean so you don't need to wear it for a week straight. Again, I actually haven't worn this for 3 or 4 days. I wear different hoodies every day. But ever since, the funny thing is, when I moved, I dug out this this Girl with the Dragon Tattoo jacket, and I wore it once. And then we found out about the great Christopher Plummer passing away. And I was actually standing with Christopher Plummer when I received this jacket. I was in New York, and it was the first time I've ever had the opportunity to talk with the great, good Canadian kid, Christopher Plummer. It was on during a press event for Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I flew down to New York for that. And I had finished my interview with him, and then a little later I had to go back into another room where he was, and me and 1 or 2 other people were standing around talking with Christopher Plummer when the PR person were going around and making sure people hadn't got that the press who hadn't got their PR packages yet, which include these and had the jackets, were handing out the jackets. And I was happened to be standing there with Christopher Plummer when I received this. And so I pulled it back out again, and I've kind of been wearing it, once or twice a week during the show, just kind of to honor Christopher Plummer. So that's why I've been wearing it. At any rate, next up, thank you for that, Teddy, by the way. Christy writes, it does not make sense to have one episode with Monica's tests. Let me try this again. It does not make sense to have one episode with Monica's tests, either inconclusive or like the X-rays blank. Try this again. It does not make sense to have one episode with Monica's tests, either inconclusive or like the X-rays blank to she has been changed on the cellular level. How did Hayward get results? Why did Monica, Darcy, Wu not shocked there are test results? Well, no, I think you're making too much out of that, Christy. Listen, they took the tests. They had those weird results. We had somebody who's a radiologist literally write into the show to say what happens is when there's an overabundance of, there's an overdose of radiation or some type of electrical field, this is what can happen in these sorts of scans, which kind of gave us an indication that there's something going on with her residually from going in and out of the barrier and living in there. And those test results would have been taken and logged. Those would have been taken and logged. Even though they were really weird, you've got to log the weird anomalies, or else you can get into trouble later if you don't, especially the anomalies. And so a lot of people, Rob, I'm seeing are jumping to this idea that this is her getting her powers, or this is the beginning of mutants. Everybody who's in Westview is going to be a mutant, and this is the beginning of mutants. It's like, or it just could be exactly what Darcy said. Like radiation will do, it's affecting your cells. And I don't think you should go back in there because the danger is getting higher. And then we heard Monica talk about cancer. She goes, I recognize these sorts of things. Cells metastasizing, cells in remission, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it really is probably exactly what they were saying it is. There is a health risk to going in and out. This is not something that should be done willy-nilly. There's something wrong here. Could it be more than that? Absolutely. Obviously, Monica Rambeau becomes Photon or Spectrum or whichever of the dozen names her superhero persona has had in the comic books over the years. But I still think she's going to get those powers in Captain Marvel too, but maybe they happen here. Rob, I've never asked you, what do you make of all that? Like, what's your theory right now on the altered cells and all that kind of stuff? Where do you think this is leading?
Well, we know when things come and go in and out of the hex that they change. I mean, a rope turns into a jump rope, or a wire turns into a jump rope. So there's incredible amounts of power being utilized to transmute matter. And it can't be healthy if people are going in and out of that and being physically altered at the molecular level. I don't know what it all means. I don't like the idea that mutants are created from whatever's happening here, because mutants have had a presence on Earth for thousands of years. And I would hate it if all of a sudden, blink, there's now mutants in the Marvel universe, because the mutants have to have history in order. I think they really do. And I don't think they would do that, but I think that there's definitely, I think we're going to see Monica Rambeau is going to cut loose and wreck shop with some serious superpowers that might have been dormant, but now they're ready to break free. So I think that's going to be part of what happens at the end.
All right, next up, we've got Shago Minion, who writes, "Hey, John, I was looking at the cast of WandaVision in Google, and it has James Spader, voice of Ultron, there, but his name is not in IMDb. Do you think he'll pop up in the next coming episode?" Well, listen, you can find anything on Google. Google will tell you anything you want to hear. So I wouldn't worry about that. But listen, I still believe that Ultron, I don't believe Ultron's popping up, but Rob, I got what I call the table. You know, the craziest crazy theories. Anything's possible, but they're not really on the table. But then there are theories that, like, actually have some real solid foundation to the theories that they could be. I mean, maybe they will, maybe they won't, but they could be. I believe Ultron is one of those theories that is still on the table. I still think the possibility that SWORD is trying to recreate Ultron out of the experimenting they were doing on Vision, I think that's on the table. I don't think that's where they're going to go. But it's absolutely one of those theories that has enough basis to it that I think it's on the table. So we'll see. They're running out of episodes. We only got 3 episodes left, so we'll find out soon. All right, Henri Mertens writes, "Hey, John, I agree Timothée Chalamet might be the next Daniel Day-Lewis, but what about Daniel Kaluuya? He was phenomenal in Queen and Slim and Get Out, and he just gave a powerhouse performance in Judas and the Black Messiah. What do you think?" I don't think Daniel Kaluuya has the potential to be the next Denzel or the next Daniel Day-Lewis. I think he is because you saw my review for Queen and Slim. I think he's a very good actor. I think he's wonderful. Is he Chiwetel Ejiofor level? I don't think so. Is he Leonardo DiCaprio level? I don't think so. Is he Denzel Washington level? I don't think so. And is he certainly the greatest of all time, Daniel Day-Lewis level? I don't think so. I think he is one of those actors who is truly phenomenal. But there's a difference between truly being great and being a potential next GOAT. The potential next greatest of all time. And I don't think there's anybody on the planet who's got that right now, Rob, except for Timothée Chalamet. He's the only guy I've seen on the planet Earth right now who has that potential. It's not even a lock. It's not a sure thing. It's not even a probability. It's potential. He's the only guy I've seen who has that potential. But make no mistake, Daniel Kaluuya is fantastic. He's absolutely fantastic. No doubt about it. All right, next up. We've got an anonymous viewer writes, "I do think John may be counting his chickens before they hatch. Won't say why, but there's still a pretty good chance that this is the Fox Quicksilver with implanted MCU memories while in the Hex. And John may have to eat his words in a couple of weeks." Well, listen, here's the thing, Rob. Everybody is eating their words. Everybody has 1,000 different theories. And every week, about 900 of those theories that we have get washed away. And then the other things come in. Like, listen, I said at the beginning, after episodes 1, 2, and 3, I believed that Wanda was totally in control. She is absolutely in control. But then when episode 4 ended and Monica Rambeau wakes up and says, "It's all Wanda," I'm like, Oh, well, my theory's wrong then, because there's no way they'd be revealing it's all Wanda after just 4 episodes. So clearly, but that have every episode. There are theories and ideas falling every episode for all of us, including me. But yes, right now, I don't see how, and Danny Sanchez sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Danny. I don't see how, when you're talking about, listen, it's not just that Peter has the memories of this universe's Pietro, but it's also the shadiness of Pietro here. Do you notice that he's trying to keep Vision separated from everybody? Like when Wanda was going to insist that Vision go with them, he's like, no, it's okay. I can step in. You go, Vision. You go. You do the thing. And she's talking to Wanda. It's like, listen, I ain't your husband. And he's pushing Wanda. He's like egging her. Oh, no, I think what you're doing is impressive. There's nothing wrong here with what you're doing. We're all playing our part, right? And by the way, Wanda, how are you doing this? How are you doing this? Look, maybe at the end of the day, when we get into episode 7, 8, and 9, maybe we find out. Ian McKellen shows up or Michael Fassbender shows up, puts his hand on Pietro's shoulder and says, "Good job, my boy," or something like that. And they completely verify it's him. But I'm sorry, right now, I didn't think it was him from the beginning. I think everything we've seen so far clearly indicates it's not him. But I also thought that everything clearly indicated Wanda was 100% in control. Now I believe she's like 85% in control, and there's some other force sitting. The way I describe her, Rob, is like in the old cartoons, a devil and an angel on each shoulder. There's another, I believe now there's another force, like a devil in her ear. Yeah, you should do this, Wanda. Yeah. Like a bad influence. So I don't know. Actually, Rob, where are you right now on whether or not this Evan Peters is actually the X-Men Days of Future Past Pietro, the Fox Universe Pietro?
Well, the whole thing that I want to know about that is, okay, we're in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The Marvel Cinematic Universe doesn't know, like if you're in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they don't know that there's another universe that has X-Men movies.
Good point.
They don't know that. Like, and the way that they've chosen Evan Peters for a reason. They didn't have to do that. They could have picked another actor, but the fact that they had Evan Peters coming in, that then now tells me that in some way, shape, or form, unless I'm told something new, that somebody, something, some person, some entity, some agency was able to see through the multiverse. And if you think about it, John, if the X-Men universe exists within the multiverse of the MCU, well, that means Star Wars could exist there, or Die Hard, or Predator, or Alien, because it's that outlandish. Like from the reality of the MCU. So now they're going to say, okay, this is now Deadpool is in play. That anything that happened, if somebody could actually reach, and they would have, somebody within the MCU knows that the multiverse exists, and was able to see that in that universe there was a Peter Maximoff that was the brother or whatever, and they made that decision to pull him through. It has to be either somebody who's able to look and see and then recreated that person, or it actually is him. But he never stopped and went, well, this is weird, because what year am I in? Like, how old am I? I seem to be as old as I was in the 80s, but this is the 2020s. It's 2023. But he's not saying that, so it clearly isn't him. But somebody had to look through the multiverse and see that there was him to exist in the first place, to bring him through or recreate him, because the other Quicksilver's dead. And if you're looking through the universe, is that supposed to be Evan Peters from what era? Like, it's all very, I want to know. I hope they have a good answer for it, because I'm confused.
And I think that's exactly where they want us to be. Confused.
Right.
All right. Next up comes to us from Whaleman K, who writes, one of two. Hey, John. Regarding yesterday's comment about time travel in Endgame, my understanding about old Steve is that he lived his life with Peggy in that timeline. Then, after that, decided to jump back to the main timeline to give the shield to Sam, because the time travel wrist device that Tony made allows him to navigate the quantum realm through different moments and different timelines. So I could see Steve planning all along returning to the main timeline after his happy life with Peggy. Here's the thing about that. Two things. One, if he was going to come back, that was the spot that he was going to return to. And then he didn't. He was already waiting on that park bench. But Rob, more than that, remember Kevin Feige confirmed that at Peggy Carter's funeral, old man Steve Rogers was there. He was there. So, and then later, when asked about these seeming inconsistencies, the two writers of Avengers Infinity War and Endgame were very blunt and very honest. They were just like, yeah, we've got some discrepancies. We know we've got some discrepancies in there. Because, of course, the idea was that whenever they would time travel back, they didn't actually go back in linear time, that when they would do that, it automatically created a separate timeline. It created a new reality that existed outside of the reality of their present. And it created an entirely different thing. So if they went back and killed baby Thanos, it wouldn't remove Thanos from their existing timeline. Yet Steve goes back, stays with Peggy Carter, lives his life, and is actually in this timeline, attending her funeral, being there waiting for Sam and everything. And then when confronted about it, the writers went, yeah, we have some inconsistencies and it's okay. But Rob, that's why, like, after Endgame, like, one of the things you and I would talk about, I'd say, like, yeah, listen, there are a number of logic holes. There are a number of logic holes in Endgame, but you have to ask yourself when you're making the film, and you have to ask yourself as a fan, whatever kind of trade-offs there are, whether it's a little bit of a logic hole, or whether it means we don't get to, if we spend screen time on this, we get less screen time for something else. You are constantly having a tug of war in your own mind about which compromises to make in order to achieve the effect you want to achieve. And if to them, they said, okay, we're going to have to make a few compromises here and there about logic integrity, but we believe the payoff that we're going to get for doing that far outweighs any negative effects from any of the compromises that we make. And so, yeah, there are logic holes in Infinity War and Endgame, but would any of us change that in exchange for losing the payoff that we got from it? I don't think so. I think it was a compromise that was worth making. I know when you think about that, Rob, you think about the old man Steve and, you know, how did he end up here? Well, I don't know. Where's your thought pattern on that right now?
Well, I mean, to me, it was always that he was in our universe. You know, I always thought that he went back in time to our reality, and old man Steve's been here the whole time, only because, like, I don't know if you've ever seen a movie called The Final Countdown, which is about a aircraft carrier going back in time.
It's got what's his name from
Kirk
Deadwood?
Douglas and Martin Sheen's in it. And,
right. Yep. The guy who's the captain of the bomber. The guy who's the captain of the bomber who's like in 1,000. He just died last year too. I can't remember his name. Anyway.
Like James Ferrantino or something like. But in that movie, that's what happened. A guy got stuck back in time. So there was actually two of him, and he had to wait till this event had taken place to make his presence known. And, you know, he's been a captain of industry. So I always thought that, you know, in my mind, to me, even if there's a little bit of inconsistency somewhere, I just go with it and I assume that there's an answer. But in my own mind, I always have to kind of fill in that blank. And in my mind, like with the Steve Rogers thing, old man Steve Rogers existed within the MCU. He was there the whole time, but he couldn't reveal himself because he had to allow history to play out the way it played out. So he's been behind the scenes the whole time. So that's why I think you could do a Steve Rogers in the 60s show if you wanted to, you know, where old man, like Steve Rogers is back being a secret agent in after World War II and stuff. And and we didn't know it. You know, he reinvented himself or something. I think it'd be kind of cool to do that.
That's a great idea. And by the way, special thanks to Cutie Pie Caden, who sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thanks for that, Cutie Pie Caden. Appreciate that. All right, let's do one more while we still got Rob here, shall we? This one comes to us from Mrs. A, who writes, I knew Wanda was a powerful Avenger, but wow, when she used her power to expand the Hex, I'm starting to believe that she is the most powerful being in the MCU universe. I goddamn love WandaVision. It's so good. And yeah, they keep expanding on, no pun intended, on how powerful she is. I mean, we really first got a glimpse of that in Endgame when she gave the baddest ass line in any comic book movie ever. I don't even know who you are. You will. Baddest ass line in any comic book movie ever. I mean, that was just outstanding. Now, Kevin Feige has said that when referring to Captain Marvel, Kevin Feige has said that Captain Marvel is the most powerful that they're going to have in their universe. Okay. But, I mean, when you look at what Wanda's doing, and you look at what Wanda is capable of, the one thing that worries me, Rob, is in the Marvel comic books, they began to have a struggle with, like in the DC comics, DC was the first one to recognize that all the multiverse stuff was getting way too out of hand. It was creating too many complications and blah, blah. So they, simplified it. Marvel has another problem where it's like there are too many what Marvel refers to as Omega level characters. Omega level was first a term used for mutants, that there are, this power level mutant, this power level mutant, this power level mutant. And then you get to Magneto. And Magneto's what they call an Omega level mutant. But then there's, Franklin Richards, who is beyond an Omega level mutant. And then you would have this guy who was a mega level mutant. And then this, and before you knew it, what was a very small exclusive club of the Omega level powered characters suddenly became even Iceman, Rob. They revamped Iceman to say Iceman is actually an Omega level character when he's really untapped. There's just so many. And now when you look at the MCU, at Marvel in general, even beyond the mutants, there are just so many characters that are just so damn powerful. They're all so damn powerful that it gets to be a little bit, oh yeah, like unless somebody has the ability to destroy the earth with one punch, it's like, oh, so they're not much of a character. And the only thing that makes me worried is that if they ever get Hulk back to where he should rightfully be, then between Hulk and Captain Marvel and now Wanda and Thor, I mean, you are starting now to get this really big collection of Omega level characters. And I'm afraid of that becoming a little bit of, what's the word they use in sex? Not delayed gratification, diminishing returns. You start getting diminishing returns. It's like, oh my God, this character is this powerful. Wow. And then, okay, there's another character that's powerful. Wow. And there's another character that's powerful. Oh, cool. And then there's another character that's powerful. That's neat. And there's another character that's powerful. It's like, oh, okay, whatever. Ho hum. And I just worry. I'm not saying they're there yet. It's still awesome, but I just worry a little bit that they might go there. Do you ever think about that? About them just blowing up how powerful X number of their characters become?
Well, then, it becomes then they can solve any threat. When you have characters that are that powerful, then where's your story going to be? Because then you can just have these characters roll in and solve the problem. And, I think it can be an issue. But yeah.
I agree. All right, guys. Hey, listen, we've kept Rob over time. So Rob, thanks again for being here, my friend. And of course, congratulations on all the accolades and the write-ups being done about your movie Tango Shalom that is out there right now. In the meantime, where can people follow you and your adventures online?
You can find me on Instagram at Robert My Burnett, find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, or find me on my own YouTube page, The Burnett Work, and my show, Robservations.
All right. Thanks again for being here, man. And we'll talk to you again tomorrow, my friend. Have a good one.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, the great Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. And if you get a chance, do check out his movie, Tango Shalom, a Jewish dancing comedy. It's just the weirdest thing to say, but it looks awesome. Make sure you guys go and check that out. Okay, guys, let's keep on going with your questions. We still got some time here. We're going to start up here with Mike Y, who writes, could aerospace engineer be Justin Hamber? Maybe Monica could have recruited him out of prison to help with Sword. That logically makes sense, right? There's a bunch of people who had that same theory, and logically that does connect dots. He is a character that would have that sort of ability, not quite Tony Stark, but in the MCU, he's there, he exists, but it sounds like a friend of hers. I don't know that Justin Hammer would be a friend of hers, so I don't know that we're going to see him pop up, but it is one that makes sense, so we have to keep that one in the back of our mind. All right, Mo versus Mo Problems writes, what are the odds Professor Hulk shows up in WandaVision? Sword needs backup, and Professor Hulk seems like he would be the easiest to get in contact with. Also, I want to see what would happen if Hulk entered the anomaly. I doubt it. That like, to me, the character that makes the most sense showing up is Hawkeye. Out of all the remaining characters in the MCU, other than Vision, Hawkeye is Wanda's closest friend. You know, he's the one who kind of got her into the Avengers. He's the one that went to rescue her from Avengers Compound when she was kind of being grounded by Tony Stark and Vision was there guarding her. He's the one that came for her. At the end of Endgame, when she had to have her heart-to-heart, I mean, it was her and Hawkeye having that moment of commiserating together. I mean, so he's the closest thing she's got, and he's got his own Disney Plus show coming up here pretty soon. So I think if anybody's going to show up, I think it's more likely going to be Hawkeye. I would guess. I don't know that, but that's my guess. All right, Alex B writes, "Hey John, what are your thoughts about the missing person from the Witness Protection Program mentioned in episode 4? Could it be Agnes or somebody else? What's happening with the Mind Stone? Can't wait for the cameo. Maple Leafs forever. Thanks." Well, there's a lot in there. Listen, I will say what I said before, which is I don't believe the missing Witness Protection person. I don't believe that person's ever going to be mentioned again. I think it's a totally inconsequential person. I don't think that person has anything to do or has any relevance with the rest of the story. I only think that their appearance or that them being mentioned, hey, we have somebody who's in witness protection, we lost contact with them. I think all that was a plot device to get the FBI and the government aware of what was going on in Westview. Other than that, I don't honestly think they're ever going to be mentioned again. But, I mean, they definitely could. Some people think that Evan Peters is actually the missing witness protection person that's now being controlled. I mean, I don't know. So it's possible, but my guess right now is that it's nobody. That's my guess. All right, next up, Sergeant Ward writes, "My intermission dream might come because they are actually given Zack Snyder's Justice League a 10-minute intermission for theatrical release. Do you think this is successful, more studios and filmmakers will apply this to their longer movies?" Well, it's really not up to the studios or the filmmakers. It's up to the theaters. The studios don't get to tell theaters whether they can or cannot have intermissions. That's a theatrical decision. Now, I'm sure if the theaters decided they wanted to do intermissions, they would consult with the studios, try to get everybody on the same page. But the studios don't get to say to the theaters, you need to have an intermission. Theaters don't have to do that. They can do whatever they want. But I like the idea. You know me, right? I like the idea of, for long movies, like 2 hours and 45 minutes or longer, maybe 3 hours or longer, having a short intermission. I think that does a lot for the movie-going experience. Less people getting up and down. You don't have to worry about when you take your bathroom break. Less people pulling out their phones because there's a time coming up when they're going to be able to go out and check their phones. Less people getting up and walking in front of you to go get more food because there's a break coming up where they're going to be able to do that. I just think there's a lot of advantages to it. So we'll see. We'll see. All right, next up. And on Purpose writes, Part 1. I recently got back from boot camp, so been catching up with your shows. When you talked about The Walking Dead ending next year, and you basically said, no, they aren't because of the Daryl/Carol spinoff show. My question is, why do you think that? I think The Walking Dead will end and Daryl will die in The Walking Dead finale. He will get get bit and Judith will have to kill him. Here's why. In season 9, there's a 6-year time gap, which made the show so much better. But during the time jump, we learned Daryl and Carol spent some time together. The spinoff could show. Part 3, the story of what Daryl and Carol were doing over the 6 years. And it's a red herring, so when Daryl dies in the finale, it's a shock. Also, please watch the new The Walking Dead Season 10 Never Stop official teaser. It's 30 seconds. And do you get heavy John Winchester vibes from JDM? Because I do. All right, thanks a lot for sending that in. Well, listen, the reason, Anon, that I said, it's not really ending because of the Daryl and Carol spinoff. That wasn't me predicting there was going to be a Daryl and Carol spinoff. That wasn't me predicting that. That was announced. Those were reports that were coming up. Those were reports that were coming out from the major trades that after The Walking Dead is done, there is a spinoff series coming of Daryl and Carol, if I remember correctly. And that's why we were talking about it at the time. So when I said, yeah, The Walking Dead isn't really ending because it's just going to continue on with the Daryl and Carol spinoff. That wasn't me making a guess. That was me talking about the news that had come out from the major trades that that's what they're doing. So I love the intricacy of your theory there, Anon. I love the way you put that all together. That's great. But again, this is something that has been reported that they are doing this spinoff and it is continuing on. So it doesn't look like Daryl's going to die. Listen, I disconnected from The Walking Dead a couple of years ago. I watched it for a long time. I enjoyed it, but I've kind of disconnected from it since. But so I'm not really, very intimately aware of everything that's going on in Walking Dead, but that's my understanding of what's going on. But excellent theory nonetheless, and on well written out. All right, listen, guys. I'm going to take a quick break here. I'm going to go refill my drink and rest up my voice for just a minute or two. So if you guys will hang tight with me, don't go anywhere. Talk amongst yourselves. We're taking a short break and we will be right back. See you in just a couple of minutes. All right, guys, and we are back. Thank you so much for your patience and indulgence as I took a little bit of a break there. Let's keep now right on rolling. We're going to get back to it here with Zagard, who writes, 1 of 2. Hey, John, thanks for everything you do. Thank you for that, Zagard. I just wanted to say, me after episode 6, me and my friend were theorizing. He said the sword director might be working for another company like AIM to get Vision's body. As soon as he said that, I remembered there is one Marvel company we have not seen much of yet, Oscorp. Since this show is supposedly connected to Spider-Man Home, number 3, could we see an Oscorp connection there? Thanks for everything you do, and give Ann, Aaron, and Rob my thanks as well. All right, thanks for sending that in, Zagard. Again, I think a lot of people are looking for ways to bring in all this other stuff. And I don't think that's likely. I think WandaVision is mostly going to keep it all in-house and keep it all. I don't know that they're going to use this way to bring in Oscorp or as a way to bring in the Fantastic Four. Although, oh my God, if this Thursday at midnight, Los Angeles time, we sit down and watch WandaVision episode 7, and Jimmy and Monica drive up, it's still nighttime, and they drive up, they stop, and they see another car, and then we have got a close-up shot of the car door, the bottom of the car door, just a close-up shot, and that bottom of that car door opens, and you see just 2 feet come down and land on the ground and start to walk towards Monica and Jimmy, and the camera pans up, and it's John Krasinski with the gray hair on the side as Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic. Oh my God, the internet's going to blow up. I mean, seriously, there's going to be a global calamity. The internet across the planet is going to crash. It's going to be awful, and it's all going to be from that. Now, I don't think that's what's going to happen. But to get an office reunion of Jim and Asian Jim, they're on screen together, I'm telling you, the internet will explode. But again, I don't think that's what they're doing, but oh my God, what an event that would be. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be that. I don't think it's going to be another company. I think Hayward's just going to end up being one of the good guys who just happens to be a big dick. And again, we'll find out though. We could be way off on that. All right. Thanks for sending that in, Zagard. Appreciate that, man. Next up, Atreyu. A little bit of never-ending story in there. Atreyu writes, Quicksilver is not like Quicksilver. Jamie Foxx said his Electro won't just be the last Electro. The border expands into Queens? Huh? Maybe? Could this be the multiverse of madness? I don't think so. Again, we have to remember that WandaVision happens 3 weeks after Hulk unsnaps everybody. Whereas Spider-Man Far From Home happens 8 months after Hulk unsnapped, right? So the events of WandaVision takes place 7 months, 7 to 7.5 months before the events of Spider-Man Far From Home. So we have to look at everything that's happening in WandaVision through the lens of what we know comes after, which is Spider-Man Far From Home. So it's going to be interesting, but hey man, Atreyu, it's a possibility. Let's keep our eyes on it. Fuck it, one more writes, it gave me comedy vibes and chills when John, I always forget his name, who plays Negan in the show. Anyway, says, last time we did this, you said I talk too much. Listen, this time, you best hope I never stop talking, because when I do, something very terrible is going to happen to you. Please check it out. Check it out. I wonder if you get the same feeling. I'll be honest with you. I've checked out of The Walking Dead. And it was great for a long time, but I'm over Walking Dead at this point. It was a great show. There's a lot of it that I really enjoyed, but I'm kind of past Walking Dead, so I'm probably Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Thank you. I'm always forgetting on Jeffrey Dean Morgan's name, and I love him in Supernatural. I love him as the comedian in Watchmen. I thought he was great as Negan, and I always forget Jeffrey Dean Morgan's name. Anyway, Yeah, I just, The Walking Dead's in my rearview mirror. So I'm probably not going to go see that myself, but I'm glad that you're still enjoying it, man. And I'm still glad it's something that's giving you a lot of fun. All right, next up. Joven G writes, all I want is Aaron Taylor Johnson Quicksilver to save Wanda at some point from Evan Peters Quicksilver and say, bet you didn't see that coming. Come on, Marvel, you know you should do it. But in all seriousness, great episode. Next Friday can't come soon enough. Listen, I am telling you, not 60%, not 70%, but I am telling you, I believe there is like a 15% chance that Aaron Taylor Johnson pops up. I think there's a reason they showed that clip of him from Age of Ultron in the previously on WandaVision. I am telling you, I really do think there's a chance. Again, I'm not saying it will happen. I'm not saying it's a 70% chance. I'm not saying it's an 80% chance. But I'm just telling you, I think there's a chance that he shows up. So don't be terribly shocked. Don't be terribly shocked if we actually see Aaron Taylor Johnson pop up, because I think there's a possibility of that. All right. Bradley writes, if Reed Richards does indeed show up, how funny would it be seeing John Krasinski and Randall Park inside the Hexes, Jim and Asian Jim? I was just saying that. And maybe they can even do The Office as their 2000 sitcom. Listen, that would be a little bit too on the nose. That would be a little too on the nose. But Bradley, first of all, just if John Krasinski shows up as Reed Richards, forget about it. The world's forget about it. It's going to be madness if he does. But if he does, and Randall Park and John Krasinski both enter the Hex, and they take on their Office personas as Jim, because that's the era they're now caught up to. That's going to be the era they're in. And we see John Krasinski as Jim and Randall Park as Asian Jim, I am going to vomit from laughter. I'm going to laugh till I vomit and maybe poop. I'm going to laugh and revel in that so much. Again, I feel like it's a little too on the nose. I don't think they're going to go that on the nose with it. But if it did, first of all, we got to have John Krasinski show up as Reed Richards. And even before that, John Krasinski has to actually be cast as Reed Richards. There's so many things getting in the way of that. But man, if it did, vomit and poop for everybody. All right, next up, an anonymous viewer writes, right? Just thought I would point out the theme music to episode 6. Don't try to fight the chaos. Don't question what you've done. The game can try to play us. Don't let it stop the fun. Some days it's all confusion. Easy come, easy go. But if it's all an illusion, sit back and enjoy the show. Let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. Though each distorted day, let's keep it going. Though there may be no way of knowing who's coming to play. I don't even know the song. But it is good to point out, Casey, that every song at the end of the episodes, when a song comes in and plays, that song is not something that foreshadows something that's to come, but it is something that becomes a mirror, a reflection of what just happened in that episode, right? And so that would obviously be I'll be honest with you, I didn't even pay any attention to the song at the end of the episode. I've watched the episode 4 times now. I never paid attention to what the song was that was being played there. So anyway, that's just me, but it's always something we should probably look for. All right. Next up, Dark Knight Rises writes, it's hard for me to see your studio right now. Is there anything we can do to help contribute to make this the ultimate movie discussion spot on the planet? No, it's all good. Listen, for me personally, being in here by myself, this space, and when I have, whether it's Aaron or whether it's Kimberly or whatever comes in, they've got their own desk now. I've got more space. My space doesn't feel cluttered. This is a great work environment for me. I'm really loving it. So no, right now I pretty much have everything. The only thing I'm missing, the one thing that I would love to have is Like, I don't know if any of you guys who are sports fans, if any of you guys watch Pat McAfee, and Black Bono Lala sends in a super chat badge in the live chats. Thanks for that, man. I don't know if any of you guys watch Pat McAfee, the sports dude on YouTube, but the one thing I'm missing, they got a little drop of something here. The one thing I'm missing right now in my studio is something that isn't really a thing. It's a person. What I wish I could do, what I really wish I could do is I wish I had the money to have a person in here with me running the show, like from a technical point of view, because you guys see that I do everything. I set the cameras, I set the audio, I set the lights, I run when images and graphics come up, I run when cameras switch. When we move over, I have to go over, read the questions, I control the incoming questions and stuff like that. I'm trying to pay attention to the live chat board, which, Chris J is saying it does look bigger. That could be taken many ways, Chris. Anyway, so the one thing that I wish I had was the ability to hire somebody that a lot of this equipment could be back there in the corner, and then me could just be at a desk, just me at a desk without having to have 4, 5 monitors in front of me. And constantly trying to focus on the switching and running the show and when graphics are supposed to come in here or there. I really wish I had like a technical director. I wish I had somebody whose job it was to come in here and run all this stuff while I just get to focus on sitting at the desk with maybe one laptop and talking to the folks. That's what I wish I had. But that's unfortunately something that you guys can't just send to me, which would be great. And if anybody got one, any of you got a spare technical director laying around that knows how to operate all this stuff, that would be awesome. But other than that, I have everything else. I think I've got everything else I need at this point. Now it's just a matter of little bit by little bit trying to improve it. So, and that's what we always try to do, to try to give you guys the best viewing experience as I possibly can. All right. Thanks for that, man. I appreciate that. All right. Next up is also Dark Knight Rises, who writes, "Hey, John. After you and let me try that again. After hearing you and Aaron talking at length about people who get fired, what about the opposite? What stars have the best PR in the industry for being professional and great to work with? I think Tom Hanks and Spielberg had the list. The big one is Tom Hanks. Everybody loves working with Tom Hanks. That's just the thing from everybody in the industry, that he is like the guy everybody wants to work with. That he's a dream to work with. He's very aware of his status in Hollywood, and he tries to use that to help other people. Charlize Theron gave a great example of that when she was awarding him that Lifetime Achievement Award. And she talked about how, she was basically a no-name nobody, and he really helped her out, and he was helping all these other people out too. And it just seems like that's the name that often comes to mind the most. Is a lot of people like to talk about Tom Hanks. All right. That's a good question, by the way. Next up, Ray A writes, one of two. I predict that episode 8 or 9 will shift from what's going on in the show, kind of like episode 4, and pick up right where Endgame leaves off from Wanda's point of view. We will see Wanda stealing Vision's body in real time, bringing him to the Westview, and finally see how she created the Hex. I'm basing this on footage we've still seen from promos, the Mind Stone scene, close-up of Wanda, alone sobbing, and all this is weird, Doctor Strange-like imagery. I think Vision's body plus the Mind Stone will play a major role. And by the way, Stephen Ortiz sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Stephen. It's funny you mentioned that, Ray, because literally, like Rob and I jump on Skype, about 20 minutes before the show starts, and we touch base, and we go over everything, and then we just chat for a bit. Right before the show started, Rob and I were talking, and literally we said, I bet episode 8 is going to be an entire flashback episode. Maybe not episode 7. Maybe it could be 7. but I think it's going to be 8. I think episode 8, maybe it could be 7. It won't be 9. 9 needs to be the conclusion of the season. So 9 won't be all flashback. But possibly 7, definitely by 8. Rob and I were both saying we both think that that's going to be a complete flashback episode. That will take us right back from after Wanda finishes having her conversation with Hawkeye at Tony's funeral, to the events, to this darkness, this aloneness that she felt for days, finally culminating as I'm going to try to get Vision back one way or the other. Something to heal my pain, something to cover my pain, like alcohol or drugs that some people use, addictions. I'm going to try to do something to heal my pain. And then that will build us up to the beginning of WandaVision. So it's kind of funny that you mentioned that, Ray, because both Rob and I completely agree. I do believe that episode is coming. Maybe episode 7 will be it, but if not 7, then definitely 8. All right, next up. Ismail Y writes, "Hey, John, did you notice Pietro's hair? At the end of episode 5, he had the silver-colored hair like he had in the X-Men movies. But then in episode 6, he had the same blonde hair like Aaron Taylor-Johnson had in Age of Ultron. Thoughts? Thanks and congrats on your new home." Well, remember, he was having the hair that was meant to be reminiscent of the hair that Quicksilver had in the comics in that era. I don't really think it had anything to do with Aaron Taylor-Johnson or vice versa. I think it was just that in that era that the show was happening right there, this is what Quicksilver kind of looked like. And I thought that was kind of what they were doing there, Ismail. I could be wrong. There might be more to it, like you're suggesting. There might be. But right now, I think that was kind of what they were doing there. All right, B writes, "Regarding the sitcoms on WandaVision, first, Growing Pains and Full House both ran into the 90s. Also, only ABC/Fox shows are being referenced. Makes sense since Disney owns both. Therefore, no Friends or Seinfeld." I don't think there's a rule. There's no rule there. Like, if they want to do Friends or Seinfeld, or listen, Modern Family, although, no, I take that back. Modern Family is an ABC show. I was about to say, I thought Modern Family was an NBC show, but I think Modern Family is actually an ABC show. Yeah, ABC's Modern Family. There you go. So that falls right in line with what you were saying. I was about to say, I don't think they're trying to stay along those network lines, but now that I think about the fact that Modern Family is an ABC show, maybe they are. I mean, but they're totally allowed. Fair use means they are allowed to reference The Office or any other show like that. They can reference those, and they're totally free to if they want. But yeah, maybe they're sticking with their own networks there. I hadn't thought about that, B. You might be onto something. Good observation. All right. Tommy McGuire writes, "In episode 5 of WandaVision, the alarm went off for someone entering/leaving the barrier. Maybe. That's when Pietro showed up. This makes me think it is really the X-Men one, with him not knowing details, and perhaps someone sent him there with some basic info already." That's a lot of assumptions, Toby. That's a lot of assumptions. And I like the way Rob articulated it earlier, but I mean, so what would be the point if all you need to do is plop somebody in there with Pietro's memories? First of all, how do you do that? Why pull in a Pietro from another universe? Yeah, no, it's not. Like, I like somebody else's theory that the thing that was sent into the barrier was actually a Skrull. That the Skrulls are seeing these transmissions and going, this isn't just a problem for this town of Westview. This is going to be a problem for the universe if this doesn't get fixed. So let's send somebody in. Now, some people will say, well, it can't be a Skrull because Skrull can't mimic superpowers. But who are we to say what the logic, what the laws of physics and everything are inside the hex? Inside the hex, maybe the Skrulls can mimic the superpowers and all that kind of stuff. Again, I don't know. A lot of different possibilities, but I still do not think that is the Quicksilver from the Fox universe. It could be. I'm not saying I 100% guarantee you it's not. No. It's possible. It is certainly possible. There are reasons why people smarter than me still believe that that is truly, legitimately, and literally the Quicksilver from the Fox X-Men movies. It's totally on the table, but I really don't think it is. I really don't think that's him. but we'll find out. There's only 3 episodes left, and we will find out. All right, next up. Kirky Novak writes, why isn't Sword calling Avengers? Dude, we've been asking that question every single week. Would you be calling people whose friend you possibly experimented on? 2, if Vision is fake, what happened to his body? Is fake Vision going to find out, or one of the kids? Well, I mean, I believe right now my theory is this, and a lot of people's theory is this, that Wanda needs something to make something else out of. She stole the remnants and the scrap of Vision's body and used that to make this new version of Vision. But it's not actually Vision. It's not the Vision we know. It looks like Vision. It sounds like Vision. It even thinks it's Vision. But little bit by little bit, we've been realizing this isn't actually Vision. He has no memory before Westview, has no idea what an Avenger is, and when he tries to leave the Hex, realizes he can't exist outside of the Hex. If this was just Vision brought back to life, then he could leave the Hex just like Monica left the Hex. But he can't. He cannot exist outside of the Hex. And then, of course, in Spider-Man Far From Home, we find out that Vision has been dead and has been dead the whole time. So that's why I really don't think this is him. But again, there could be other explanations. We still got 3 episodes to go. Let's find out. But good point about, would you be calling the people that you were experimenting on their friend's body? Maybe, maybe not. But again, they should be calling an Avenger at this point. All right, next up. Roundhouse writes, hey, John, quick thought. Is Wanda still on the run from the Winter Soldier? You mean from Civil War? We don't know if her crimes were forgiving after Endgame or if the government want to control her and her powers. Superpower registration might be brought up again in Falcon and Winter Soldier. I mean, it could be, but I mean, let's look at Infinity War, right? Who was the head of the faction that opposed the Sokovia Accords? Captain America. Was Captain America in jail? At the beginning, I should have said Endgame. At the beginning of Endgame, is Captain America in jail? No. Captain America is living out in public. He's going to support groups. He's all that kind of stuff, right? So clearly, the Sokovia Accords were either temporarily suspended or they gave all the Avengers a pass. I said, you tried to fight to save the world, and if we didn't have these stupid Sokovian Accords, and maybe if we all realized that Captain America was right the whole time when it came to Civil War, maybe if all of that, you guys could have stopped Thanos. Maybe if we didn't have the Avengers broken into 2 factions and half the Avengers having to be on the run, maybe if we still had an intact, organized, and prepared Avengers, maybe the damn snap wouldn't have happened and we wouldn't have lost 3 billion lives in this world. And maybe then somebody finally went, yeah, that's our bad, Cap. Sorry about that. Yeah, just clean slate, everybody. Cool, clean slate, right? So I've got to assume if Captain America, who was the head of that faction, was given a pass and all clear, then I've got to imagine that when Wanda is brought back from the snap, I've got to assume she's probably living under that same privilege that Captain America is. Maybe. Maybe yes, maybe no, not sure. So my guess is that she didn't have to be on the run anymore. She will now, though. She definitely will now. All right, Ryan Lohner writes, everyone says John Krasinski should play Reed Richards, but it might be kind of awkward with him already playing Jimmy Woo. Well said. Well said. I like that. With him already playing Jimmy Woo. Okay. Nicely done. Nicely done. I like that, Ryan. Well said. All right. Next up, Sergeant Ward writes, hey, John, here's an idea. Why doesn't Cruella and Black Widow swap release dates? That way, Black Widow can come out in May 28th and put Cruella on Disney+. I don't think people would mind that, and that way won't cause a release date ripple effect. Release dates are the least of their problems right now. Listen, I do believe that Black Widow, we just talked about this the other day, that Disney, Bob Chapek is saying, Black Widow, don't listen to anybody saying that's going to go to Disney+. It's going to get its full, normal theatrical release. And I believe him, but I also believe they're going to have to, May 7th is just too short. Now, listen, we just got some great news. Like the government is now administering 2 million vaccinations per day, which is way ahead of their schedule. So that's good news. We continue to see the new infection rate drop. That's good news. But even though that's all good news, I still think May is a little bit early. I see Disney pushing Black Widow to like July. And like maybe like 45, 60 days. I think they'll push like an additional 45, 60 days, and then they'll be ready to go. So that's kind of the way I think they're going to handle it. Could be wrong, but you never know, Sergeant Ward. Let's see what they do. Let's see. Next up, Jose Salazar writes, 1 of 2. Hey, John, first time ever posting. Thank you so much for being here, Jose. I appreciate that, man. Agree or meh with the following. The MCU needs to step up the music soundtrack department with all of the upcoming projects and make them more memorable, a la John Williams, Superman, and Danny Elfman, Batman. The only thing I can feel they've nailed so far is the Avengers' overall music theme. That, as a music appreciator, I believe they should do something about this. Listen, I'm going to tell you that. I've said this for a long time, Jose. Now, look, I am appreciator of the DC Cinematic Universe. I'm appreciator of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I love that. There's a number of things that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been able to do better. But one of the areas that I think the DC has constantly done better with their films, and this is just personal preference, personal opinion. One of the things I feel that the DCU has consistently done a better job of is their music. The score in their stuff has just pretty much consistently been better. Now, yes, there is that iconic Avengers theme, but that iconic Avengers theme was never really catchy to me at first. It's only become catchy because now we associate it with the history of the MCU. Bum, 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 bum. Like now we hear that music and we associate it, and Danny Sanchez sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Danny. We hear that music and now we associate with that, but on its own, that music never really stood out to me. When you look at the DCU, oh my God. What are you going to do when you're not saving the world by Hans Zimmer and Man of Steel? I still listen to that music in the shower at least twice a week. At least 2 times a week when I get in the shower getting ready to do the show, I say to my Google device, which I don't want it to hear me now. I say, "Hey Google, play What Are You Going to Do When You're Not Saving the World by Hans Zimmer." And I'm in the shower, bum, 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 with the violins going, bum, and I'm in the shower getting revved up. My blood starts flowing. That music is awesome. Rob was referring a little bit earlier to like that Wonder Woman theme, man. You got that electric cello being played. Like that's powerful. It's iconic. You remember it not just because of the movie. You remember it because the music itself has just great personality, likened unto John Williams scores, right? You listen to John Williams scores, you can identify them in 5 bars or less. Bum, bum, ba, bum, bum, ba. Oh, Harry Potter. Bum, 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 bum. Oh, Jurassic Park. Bum, 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 bum. Oh, Indiana Jones. Bum, 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 bum. Oh, Superman. Bum, 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 bum. Oh, that's Imperial March, Star Wars. I mean, he's just got that. And yes, I agree. The one thing, now it obviously hasn't taken away too much. It hasn't taken away too much from the MCU that their music hasn't been like, hasn't been to that level. But yeah, if there was one overall thing they could really improve upon, one would be stop doing so many fake deaths. And the second would be, yeah, they could probably up their, and by the way, I'm not saying the music in the MCU is bad. Not at all. I'm not sitting here saying it's bad. Not in the least. But if there was an area that they could up their game in, yeah, I would concur, Jose. I would concur that probably would be in the realm of music. I think that would probably be that is one that I think the DCU has consistently done better. I think they've consistently been better in that regard. But, it is what it is. All right, can't be great at everything. All right, Tony Stank. Yes, this is Tony Stank. Tony Stank writes, one of two. I asked my 8-year-old for her WandaVision theory. She thinks that Wanda has made a deal with somebody, maybe the devil, to bring Vision back. She also thinks that Sword was trying to turn Vision into a Sentinel hunter. That's become a more popular theory, that Sword is trying to build Sentinels. That's an interesting theory. And is Tony Stank Alex? Okay, I'm going to guess that Tony Stank is Alex. Okay. And is trying to build Sentinel Hunter. Also, Black Panther 2 theory. T'Challa is missing / passed away. Citizens are being murdered in Wakanda, and Shuri and M'Baku investigate to find out it's Kraven the Hunter and barely escape with their lives. After escaping, M'Baku says that they need help from a skilled hunter. This is when Shuri finds out that Killmonger isn't dead, but put in prison. With internal conflicts, the group battle and defeat Kraven. Killmonger then seeks to find redemption to Black Panther. No way. I mean, I will borderline give up on the MCU if they try to do that. Killmonger, played brilliantly by Michael B. Jordan, was fabulous. But there is no redemption arc for this. Killmonger tried to invoke a global genocide. He betrayed the royal family. He committed treason against Wakanda. He killed members of the Dora Milaje. I'm sorry. As great as that character was, there's no redemption for the Killmonger character. Not in the eyes of Wakandan society. He tried to usurp the throne, violating their most sacred rule. To get the throne, you got to win by death or submission. And when T'Challa showed up, clearly he's still alive, and I never submitted. You're not king. Didn't matter to him. He still tried to usurp the throne. He tried to create a global genocide. He tried to create a global war and murder a lot. He killed one of the close members. He killed the Forrest Whitaker character, one of the closest members of the royal family. Tried to kill Shuri. No. They're not bringing him back. I mean, they could bring the character back, but he's not coming back in some kind of redemption arc. It's just too far gone. They had the character do way too much, in my opinion. But this is the MCU. One never knows. And let's see which direction they go with that. All right. An anonymous viewer writes, WandaVision's simple theory. After Endgame, Wanda speaks to Doctor Strange about her powers, and he refers her to Agnes for training, or Agatha Harkness, for training. Somewhere along the way, Wanda loses control in rage / emotions, and Agnes is stuck in the Hex, fighting to fix things on the inside. Possible. Now, listen, we were just talking about how I believe maybe episode 7, but certainly by episode 8, that we're going to get an all flashback episode, right? And it is possible that in that flashback that goes back to the end of Endgame, that maybe Wanda does go try to seek out somebody who might have some idea what she's dealing with. Like with the power set she has. And maybe Doctor Strange becomes that. Maybe. But you also have to remember that Doctor Strange is not yet the Sorcerer Supreme. And John Dorsey sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, John. Appreciate that, man. He's not yet the Sorcerer Supreme. And you also got to remember that Doctor Strange himself also just came back from the snap. Right? Like he also just came back. So, I mean, it's possible, but again, I still don't think that Doctor Strange shows up. I still think it's more likely Hawkeye or maybe Wong. Wong could possibly be it, or maybe a character from the Spider-Man universe. Not necessarily Peter, but maybe. I mean, I don't know. But I don't think it's going to be Doctor Strange. But again, Doctor Strange is one of those theories that's definitely on the table. Definitely on the table. All right, next up. We got Homelander's doppelganger writes. Hawkeye has barely been back with his family for a week after losing them for 5 years. I don't think he would leave them again that soon. As for the Avengers, 500 million people have been put back after the snap, so the world's in chaos. Thoughts? No, listen. Hawkeye feels responsible for Wanda. And listen, What's going on in Westview is a threat to the world. And if it's a threat to the world, that means it's a threat to Hawkeye's family. You don't think Hawkeye, after just getting his family back, is going to try to stop something that would threaten his family again? Like if it was just a little local thing, a bank robbery in progress in Chicago. Oh, and then Hawkeye hears about this. Oh, Hawkeye needs to jump into action and go to Chicago and stop those bank robbers. No. This is a thing that I think they're going to look at as this is a global problem. This is a reality problem. And if you tell Hawkeye, hey, Hawkeye, there's a new threat to your family's safety, you don't think Hawkeye is going to go and do something about that when he just got them back? I think so. I think he would. This is all theoretical, of course. It's all theoretical. But if he views it as a threat, as a real threat to his family's safety, and believe me, they're going to start looking at this Westview thing as a global problem. If Hawkeye sees a threat to his family's safety, on top of that, Wanda, that he feels responsible for, Wanda is involved? Oh yeah, he goes. He goes. Absolutely he goes. Anyway, that's just kind of back. Who knows? Anything's possible, though. Anything's possible. By the way, Preston Bell and Dean Dillon both send in super chat badges in the live chat. Thank you, Preston and Dean. I appreciate that, guys. All right. Last question right now, guys, comes to us from War Doctor 10, who writes, hey, John, since Wolverine is the one that wakes everyone up in House of M, do you think that Vision is playing that part in WandaVision? Kind of, in a way. Yeah, so the way they explained it in House of M, when Wanda creates this weird different reality where mutants are celebrities and Magneto kind of rules the world and all that kind of stuff, the only person that actually knows what's actually going on and remembers what the world is supposed to be like is Wolverine. I think it has something to do with his mutation that allows him to remember. I can't remember exactly. But I think it's because his mind has been played with so many times that he can just see through all this now. Anyway, technically speaking, though, Wolverine isn't the one that wakes people up. I think there was another mutant involved. Might have been Emma Frost. But there's another mutant involved that has the ability to wake up those memories in everybody else. But yeah, kind of in a way. Like, this is a good example of how the comics don't do, I mean, the MCU doesn't do what the comics do, but they will borrow themes. And yeah, it does kind of seem like Vision could become that theme. He could fulfill that kind of role in this that was kind of done elsewhere in House of M. All right, guys, listen. We've gone overtime today. Still questions to come from Michael W., Scotty B., Kid Me Not, and a bunch of others. Don't worry, guys. We are going to get caught up here. Kimberly is coming over a little bit later today, and Kimberly and I are going to do a big companion video a little bit later this afternoon. So if you still have questions outstanding, do not worry, guys. We're either going to get all the way caught up through all the questions you got sent in, or we're going to get real far through. And if it doesn't get answered in our companion video, just check on we'll get started with the leftovers on the John Campea Show tomorrow. So don't worry, guys. We're going to get through all these questions that got sent in. All right, guys. That will do it for me for this installment of the John Campea Show. Thanks to Robert Meyer Burnett for being here, of course, bringing his greatness and glory here. Thank you to all of you for spending a part of your day hanging out with us here. It's always an honor and privilege when you guys do that. And a special thank you to all you guys who sent in those live questions. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel as you did it. And all of us here involved with the John Campea Show, thank you guys very, very much for that support. Okay, guys, remember, do the four main things. Stay smart, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and take care of the people around you. That'll do it for me for now, guys. Thanks a lot for being here. My name's John Campea, and until next time, guys, bye-bye.